I just wanted to get my turtle neutered, but I ended up forcing him to speak human tongue, revealing a shocking secret. He said a blood moon will descend on this year's Lantern Festival, and countless deep abyssal cracks will rip through the earth. Innumerable evil giants will crawl out of these chasms. They are incredibly powerful and feed on humans. Fortunately, beasts and insects have also mutated, allowing them to form pacts with humans and transform into Mecha Beast Armor. I wasn't too surprised by this. Ever since I got this turtle, my life has been completely rewritten. Following his guidance, I first won $300 million in the lottery. Then my business ventures went smoother than ever. In just 10 years, I built $1 trillion empire. At this moment, the old turtle chuckled and said, "You still have 6 months to prepare that plot of land in the new district. Buy up as much of it as you possibly can. Then try your best before the Lantern Festival to build an ultimate super fortress. Because in my prophetic dream, the 3 abyssal cracks appearing in Nopper City are all quite far from the new district." My expression remained relatively calm as I asked him, "Can humanity's nuclear weapons handle those giants?" The little turtle opened his mouth and replied, "By then, Earth's magnetic field will have shifted. Nuclear weapons will no longer trigger nuclear fusion. Other conventional weapons, however, won't be affected." Without a second thought, I directly called the general manager of the real estate department. "Secure that plot of land in the new district within 3 days. I don't care if we take a loss." As a mere employee, Ray naturally did exactly what the boss ordered. "Since you put it that way, boss, we can lock down that land today." Hanging up the phone, I hesitated over whether to report this to the higher-ups, but even if I did, they probably wouldn't believe me anyway. It would be better to wait until construction on the fortress begins, and then issue a public announcement in the group's name. As for whether the government officials choose to believe it or not, that is entirely up to them. My gaze fell back upon the old turtle. "In your prophetic dream, did you see what kind of beast I formed a pact with?" The old turtle suddenly let out a sinister laugh. "Why settle for a pact? Enslaving them would be much better, wouldn't it?" My eyes flashed. "We can actually do that," the old turtle said confidently. "Before the disaster strikes, with my abilities, it is well within my power. I know of a black ring snake that can turn into black dragon armor, a calico cat that can transform into Chionchi beast armor, and a 5-colored yak that can become 5 elements killing armor. Furthermore, I also know of 9 other fiercely powerful super beasts. You can find 9 of your most absolute loyal confidants, and I will help enslave the beasts for them too. But that is the absolute limit of what I can manage." My eyes lit up. 9 people? What a perfect coincidence. I just happened to have 9 loyal henchmen who fought alongside me, who are specifically tasked with handling the group's shadier and off-the-books business. The next morning, I had just returned from my run when I received a call from Ray. "Boss, we got the new district land for a total of $90 billion. Longyou Corporation wanted to bid against us at first. They really have a death wish." I replied calmly, "As long as we got it, that's fine. Next, I have a highly critical mission to hand over to you." Ray's voice sounded powerful and resolute. "Please give the order, boss." Mission guaranteed to be accomplished. I got straight to the point and said, "Within 6 months, on that plot of land in the new district, build a fortress capable of withstanding a nuclear strike. How much funding do you think you will need?" Hearing this, Ray was completely stunned. He stammered out, "B boss, are you being serious?" Although he didn't doubt for a second that his boss absolutely had the financial power to back it up, my words were still far too mind-blowing for him. After receiving my confirmation, Ray forced himself to calm down. "To complete construction within 6 months, and it must be able to withstand a nuclear blast wave. I feel we will need at least $500 billion. With a wave of my hand, I am granting you $600 billion in funding authority. Within 6 months, make sure I see an absolutely impregnable fortress." Ray, the corporate soldier, immediately promised, "Guarantee, to finish the mission." I reply, "Then I'll leave it to you. Call me anytime if you run into any difficulties." "Understood, boss. I'll assemble my team right now to discuss breaking ground." Hanging up the phone, I looked at the old turtle on the desk and said, "Old Black, if the cataclysm doesn't happen when the time comes, my $600 billion will go straight down the drain." The old turtle chuckled. "My prophetic dreams have never been wrong. Otherwise, how could you have achieved everything you have today?" Curiously, I asked, "What exactly is the relationship between you and that old beggar who gave you to me back then?" The old turtle's eyes rolled around quickly in a circle. "Is there a possibility that I am that very old beggar? If you hadn't been willing to share half of the few dollars you had left with me back then, you wouldn't be the one calling the shots today." Just then, a beautiful female voice came from outside the door. "Mr. Gu, breakfast is ready." This woman, whose looks and figure were absolutely flawless, was named Sumuyao. She was my house manager and personal secretary. As I walked into the dining room, my phone suddenly rang. It was a call from the board of directors. None of them approved of the group spending $600 billion to build a fallout shelter fortress. I immediately snapped back aggressively. "Who do you think you are, trying to tell me how to do my job? If you have a problem with my decision, then you'd better sell off your shares as soon as possible." After saying that, I hung up the call immediately. Facing someone like me who held a 70% stake, they could do nothing but grumble a little. No matter how resentful they were, they had to suck it up. Seeing this, Sumuyao stepped forward and asked, "Mr. Gu, Are there any schedules that need arranging after breakfast? I took a sip of milk and said calmly, for the past week, don't schedule any company matters for me. You handle them on my behalf. For any business deals under $10 billion, you don't need to ask for my opinion. Just make the decision yourself. Hearing this, Sumu Yao did not ask any further questions. She had been with me for 7 years and understood my personality very well, domineering, aggressive, and my word was final. And the reason I made these arrangements was because for the next 6 months, I intended to focus my attention on physical training right after breakfast. A burly, fierce-looking man walked in with quick strides. He sat down casually across from me and said, "Boss, you called for me." This man was named Chu Kuang. He had been my closest best friend since elementary school. Nodding at him, I said, "I have a mission to give you." Chu Kuang nodded with excitement. "Boss, tell me, who are we taking out this time?" Hearing his words, I couldn't help but smile slightly. Don't always think about taking someone out. Then, I pulled out my phone, sent a file over to him, and said, "Every single animal listed in the document I just sent you, track them down, even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground. This is extremely vital to us." Hearing this, Chu Kuan didn't ask any questions either. He simply nodded and agreed straight away. Time flew by, and a week passed in the blink of an eye. During this period, every online platform was discussing the exact same thing. That was, New God Group building a Fallout shelter fortress, as well as the public announcement I issued under the group's name regarding the global cataclysm that would strike on this year's Lantern Festival. For a time, everyone was debating whether the cataclysm was real or fake. At the same time, New God Group quickly received a warning from the capital city. I wasn't surprised by this at all. That same day, I had the group take down the announcement and issue a symbolic clarification statement. As construction on the shelter fortress began on a massive scale, quite a few wealthy tycoons, just to be safe, contacted New God Group one after another, wanting to purchase apartments inside the fortress. I didn't reject them and instructed Sumu Yao to sell them at $50 million for up to 1,000 square feet, with an additional $10 million for every extra 100 square feet. Meanwhile, I continued to put all my focus on how to physically train my body. I even brought in several martial arts masters, aiming to completely transform myself within 6 months. Although the old turtle didn't explicitly tell me to train, in the face of the impending disaster, having a strong physique certainly wouldn't hurt. Just like that, another half a month went by. Someone from the capital city requested a meeting with me. It was an old man with a resolute face. He introduced himself. "Hello, Mr. Gu. I am General Lin Baikuin from the 8th War Zone. About the cataclysm announcement your New God Group made earlier, what exactly is going on with that?" In truth, over the past 2 weeks or so, they had been constantly debating the authenticity of this matter. After all, it was a major issue concerning the survival of humanity. Leaning back on the sofa, I replied calmly, "General Lin, I cannot guarantee with absolute certainty that this is real. As for whether you believe it or not, that is entirely for you to consider." Lin Baikuin gave me a deep look and said in a grave voice, "After discussions among the Empire's high command, for the sake of over 1 billion citizens' lives, we have decided it is better to be safe than sorry. But regarding building shelters and needing to avoid the abyssal cracks, could you provide some guidance, Mr. Gu?" The only reason the Empire was willing to believe it was entirely due to my status. Had it been any ordinary person, they would have simply scoffed at it. But as a son of this nation, since the Empire was willing to believe it, I naturally wouldn't be stingy with my help. Just then, Chu Kuang's voice echoed from outside. "Boss, I'm back." Right after, he came walking in with large strides. I turned my head to look at him. "You found them?" Chu Kuang patted his chest reassuringly. "Don't worry, boss. They've all been delivered to the backyard." I turned back to Lin Baikuin and said, "General Lin, I have some other matters to attend to. I will send you the exact coordinates for the shelter fortresses in every city later." Lin Baikuin stood up to take his leave. "In that case, I won't disturb you any longer, Mr. Gu." Arriving at the backyard, I saw several large flatbed trucks parked there. Inside the cages on the trucks, all kinds of different animals were locked up. Seeing me arrive, the group's other 8 elite enforcers came forward one after another to greet me. I nodded at them, then spoke to the old turtle resting on my shoulder. "Old Black, take a look and see if the animals you mentioned are all here." Old Black nodded. "Take me around for a look." Chu Kuang and the others, seeing a turtle actually opening its mouth to speak, all looked as though they had just seen a ghost. Ignoring their shock, I carried Old Black and walked toward the trucks. After picking and sorting for half an hour, only 12 cages were left on the spot. As for the other animals, they were all sent to the zoo, owned by the New God Group. Very puzzled, Chu Kuan asked me, "Boss, what exactly is the use of them?" I just smiled and said, "They are the very assets that will allow us to survive the upcoming apocalypse. Aside from that 5-colored yak, the black ring snake, and the calico cat, each of you pick one." Chu Kuan was the first to step up without hesitation. "In that case, I'll take the tiger. None of you fight me for it." Seeing this, the other 8 men also chose their preferred beasts one after another. I looked at the old turtle on my shoulder and asked, "Old Black, what do we do next?" The old turtle said with a slight hint of annoyance. Draw blood from each of your cells and the super beasts. Then mix my blood into it. After that, inject half of it back into your cells and the other half into the super beasts. This way, once the red moon descends, you will become the absolute masters of these super beasts. Unlike other people, who can only form equal contracts, you should know. Whether a super beast under an equal contract helps you or not, depends entirely on their mood. But if you enslave them directly, you only need a single thought to activate your Mecha Beast Armor. Hearing his words, everyone looked at Old Black with immense curiosity. How do we suit up exactly? Old Black explained. The super beasts can attach themselves to your bodies, transforming into powerful armor. Once they reach level 6, they can even evolve into an even more formidable Mecha Beast form. Hearing this, everyone showed expressions of pure excitement. Chu Quan even put on a cheeky grin and said, "Thank you for your hard work, Master Black. How about I go fetch a female turtle for you? Actually, I should get at least 10 of them to make sure you enjoy yourself to the fullest, Master Black." Old Black glared with his tiny eyes wide open. "Get lost. Stop wasting time. Hurry up and draw my blood. You don't need much. 1 drop per person is enough." Once they finished drawing Old Black's blood and mixed it together, everyone administered the injections to themselves and their super beasts. In the period that followed, to avoid causing widespread panic, the authorities did not publicize the matter heavily. However, a fire cannot be wrapped in paper forever, as construction began on one fallout shelter fortress after another. Word eventually leaked out anyway. For a time, the entire empire fell into chaos. All sorts of doomsday rumors were flying everywhere. Since things had reached this point, the authorities knew they could no longer hide it. They immediately released an official announcement. The content of the announcement was exactly the same as what New God Group had previously released. Once this announcement came out, not only the Empire, but also nations overseas plunged into total chaos. However, the Empire's authorities quickly promised that they would not abandon a single citizen. Of course, that was merely a well-intentioned lie. In reality, there was only enough room to select 1 person per household. Once the citizens settled down, most of them were willing to help build the shelter fortresses for free. Next, utilizing the full strength of the nation, numerous shelter fortresses standing 14 to 1500 feet high began to rise rapidly from the ground. Time flew by, and February 9th arrived in no time. On this day, while I was petting a calico cat at the villa, Ray called me. As soon as I picked up, his excited voice came through. "Boss, did you watch the video I sent you? Our shelter fortress is completely finished. We can move in at any time." I replied with satisfaction. "I saw it. Very well done." Over the next few days, start organizing the group's employees and their families to move in first. Furthermore, the supplies that the group produced and acquired over the past 6 months should be transported inside as quickly as possible. In the blink of an eye, it was February 24th. Today was the Lantern Festival. At this moment, inside the New God Shelter Fortress, everyone who was supposed to be inside had already moved in. The outermost perimeter of the fortress was agricultural land. The middle section consisted of tiers of residential buildings and various factory plants, and further inside was the luxury residential district. At the exact center of the fortress stood the New God Group headquarters, surrounded by massive warehouses storing all kinds of supplies. On the observatory deck at the very top of the headquarters building, Chu Quan and the other 8 elite enforcers of the group were gathered together with me. Chu Quan looked at Old Black, who was lazily sprawling on the table, and asked with an excited yet complicated mix of emotions, "Master Black, it's already 11:50. Will a disaster really strike in 10 minutes?" The reason his emotions were so complicated was because a full 70% of humanity had not been able to enter any shelter fortress. Old Black glanced at Chu Quan and said, "I honestly wish it were all fake." Right at that moment, the peaceful night sky suddenly erupted with thunder and lightning. Silver lightning lit up the entire night sky like a spider web. By 11:59, the full moon in the sky began to be gradually covered in a crimson-red hue. As the clock struck midnight, the ground began to vibrate violently. Upper City, a first-tier metropolis where millions of people lived, slowly split open with 3 chasm-like cracks. And right at this very moment, the calico cat that had been resting quietly in my arms suddenly dashed out with a swift swoop, bathing under the crimson moonlight. A sudden surge of silver light erupted around its body. Immediately following that, it actually began to gradually transform into a fierce-looking mechanical sphere, a beast ring in the shape of a Cheonchi Tok form. A dark golden light flowed across the entire body of this ring, radiating a terrifyingly malevolent and soul-stirring aura. In the next second, it flew right in front of me with a sharp whoosh. While everyone was still staring in amazement at this scene, several more rushing sounds broke through the air. One beast ring after another came whistling through, flying straight to their respective owners. Meanwhile, in front of me, right beside the Cheonchi beast ring from just now, a black dragon beast ring appeared, as well as a 5 elements killing beast ring. Old Black shook his head at this moment and said, "Put them on. Not only will they significantly strengthen your physical bodies, but they will also grant you the ability to suit up into Mecha Beast Armor at any time." Holding my red wine, I looked at the excited crowd before me. Chu Quan's white tiger armor looked absolutely magnificent, its sheer pressure making even the surrounding air seem to freeze. Sumuyao traced the patterns on her cyan blue armor, her face filled with complete disbelief. Zhao Meng patted the breastplate of his divine elephant armor to show it off. Zhang Feng, wearing his ice rhinoceros armor, leapt straight down from the platform hundreds of feet high. Not wanting to be outdone, Zhao Meng followed right behind him. After two loud crashes, the two began sparring fiercely downstairs. Guan Hu, wearing his Star Wolf armor, nudged closer and asked, "Boss, aren't you going to test your 3 super beasts?" Chu Quan looked at me with burning eyes. "Yeah, boss. We're all really curious to see just how insane your armor is." Li Yue also smiled and chimed in. "Boss, show us what you've got." Everyone's eyes converged on me. I took a sip of red wine and smiled faintly. "Do you really want to see it? Then I'll let you have a look." Black dragon armor, suit out. With a sharp hum, ripples emanated from the black dragon beast ring on my finger. Instantly, a set of black dragon armor, crisscrossed with dragon patterns, and wrapped in black lightning, covered my entire body. Beneath the dragon helm, a fleeting glimpse of my eyes revealed a terrifying aura. Thor. Everyone present was forced back several steps by this emperor-like overwhelming pressure. Even their super beasts didn't dare display the slightest hint of hostility. Xiongqi God-slaying spear. Arm, as I raised my hand. A dark, long spear, enveloped in a dark golden mist, appeared right in my palm. The spear tip was as sharp as an arrow, while the butt featured a ferocious Xiongqi. The aura radiating from its head sent a sudden jolt of terror through everyone's hearts. Wu Rei swallowed hard and took a few steps back, asking, "Boss, what kind of weapon is that?" I smiled calmly. "Naturally, it's a god-slaying weapon. Who wants to come step up and test its power?" Zhang Feng waved his hands frantically. "Don't play jokes on us, boss. Just this aura alone is making my super beast tremble." Chu Quan asked out of curiosity. "Boss, what about your other super beast? Can you call it out for us to check out too?" I shook my head. "Let's forget about it for now. The 5 elements killing armor needs to be equipped together with the black dragon armor. It's too much of a hassle." Just then, a loud crash echoed from downstairs. Relying on the strength of his divine elephant armor, Zhao Meng narrowly defeated Zhang Feng. Su Muya spoke up. "Mr. Gu, my super beast just informed me that hunting giants to obtain their hardcores will allow us to level up." I looked at the old turtle lounging lazily on the table and asked, "Old Black, anything you want to add?" Old Black let out a yawn. "Go hunt them down while the giants are still weak. The ones coming up right now are just appetizers." I nodded and gave my orders. "Wu Rei, go assemble all the Mecha Beast warriors inside the fortress. Prepare to head out with me to hunt the giants." "Yes, sir. I'll have someone make a broadcast immediately." The night was as dark as ink, and a silver cosmic rain enveloped the entire globe. From the bottomless chasms, countless evil giants crawled out. Upper City, this once prosperous metropolis, instantly turned into a living hell on earth. Ordinary buildings were like cardboard houses in front of the giants. In just a short half an hour, innumerable humans had already perished inside the mouths of the giants. Everywhere, Mecha Beast warriors formed teams and moved out, hunting the giants to acquire their cores. On a certain street, a man wearing golden dragon armor severed the head of a 50-foot giant with a single sword strike. He carved out the grayish-white heart and absorbed the core. 3 figures quickly dashed over. A man wearing black leopard armor reported, "Boss, we've taken over an underground boxing ring. There are over 100 people inside, including more than 10 Mecha Beast warriors." A woman wearing peacock armor hesitated. "Boss, are we really not going to the government's shelter fortress? I heard that the fortress built by the New God group is also nearby." The man in the golden dragon armor said solemnly, "Why should we go? When we were just ordinary people, they abandoned us. What right do they have to ask for our help now?" The man in the black leopard armor let out a cold laugh, chiming in. "Exactly. The authorities were the ones who abandoned us first. On what grounds should we fight for them now?" The man in the golden dragon armor thought for a moment, and said, "We will gather supplies, while hunting down giants, and head over there by morning." No sooner had he spoken, than a 60-foot giant charged forward with a roar. The man in the golden dragon armor unfurled dragon wings from his back, charging ahead with his holy sword. Holy relic dragon emperor slash, a blinding golden blade aura, instantly severed the giant's energy structure, cleaving it cleanly in half right through the waist. He turned toward the woman in the peacock armor and said, "Peacock, extract the core quickly. This giant's core is yours." In the early morning hours of New Year's Day, Earth was already riddled with countless scars. At least 1 million giants ran rampant through Upper City. Fierce battles between Mecha Beast warriors and giants could be seen everywhere. Yet most of the Mecha Beast warriors, who had been abandoned by the authorities, were completely unwilling to fight on the government's behalf. On a certain street, dozens of Mecha Beast warriors were fleeing for their lives. Behind them, a 100-foot armored red giant crushed a building with every single step it took. The giant opened its maw and spat out a beam of destructive energy, instantly slicing several Mecha Beast warriors who failed to dodge, completely in half. It scooped up the corpses, chewing on them while continuing to hunt down the remaining survivors. Atop a skyscraper a mile away, one of my subordinates felt his hair stand on end at the sight, and contacted me immediately. At this moment, I was inside a residential complex, having just split open an 80-foot giant with a single spear strike. Nearly 100 giants in this vicinity had already been slaughtered by my hand. The survivors inside the complex were all staring at me in absolute silence. I carved out the giant's hardcore and absorbed it. A sudden flash of light enveloped my body, and my aura surged several times over. Level 3 already. I muttered to myself in a low voice, preparing to leave. My subordinate's anxious voice came through the communicator. "Mr. Gu, are you available right now? A giant measuring 100 feet tall and covered entirely in red armor has appeared over here. It is brutally slaughtering Mecha Beast warriors left and right. A glimmer of interest flashed across my eyes. A giant covered in armor. Now that's somewhat interesting. Follow it from a safe distance. I'll be there shortly. After saying that, lightning suddenly crackled all around me, and I stepped through the air, vanishing into the dark night. The upper city channel of the Mecha Beast network had already exploded with activity. Countless people were posting the coordinates of the armored red giant, begging for rescue. Quite a few powerful experts also rushed over upon hearing the news. A woman in vermilion bird armor finished refining the core in her hand, and immediately sped off toward the coordinates. The man in the golden dragon armor also ordered, "Peacock, gather our forces. Follow me to the area where the armored red giant is." The territory where the armored red giant located had already turned into a sea of fire and ruins. Its actual height was 110 feet, its body clad in red armor, and dripping with blazing fire. At the center of its brow, there was a third vertical eye that had not yet opened. It grabbed a handful of Mecha Beast warriors hiding inside a building, tossed them into its mouth, and let out a deafening roar, terrifyingly enough. Upon hearing the roar, nearby giants all began to swarm toward this exact location. The Mecha Beast warriors lurking in the shadows instantly felt a bone-chilling shiver run down their spines. Only then did they realize that they might have fallen into a meticulously planned trap. Upper City was divided into 3 districts. Inside the second district, as the armored red giants were echoed at, countless giants heard the sound and converged toward the same direction. Inside the Central Operations Command Hall of the government's shelter fortress, Lin Baikuin looked at the satellite projection, frowned, and stood up. What's going on? Why are the giants in the second district all heading toward one single location? The adjutant reported immediately. General, it's not just the giants. The vast majority of Mecha Beast warriors are also rushing over there. Lin Baikuin's face darkened. A red armored giant, over 100 feet tall, switched the satellite to give me a real-time feed immediately when the projection displayed the scene of the armored red giant massacring the Mecha Beast warriors. Lin Baikuin's pupils dilated in shock. Damn it. It can command the other giants. This is an intelligent giant. It must be eliminated as soon as possible, the adjutant said gravely. General, this giant is too powerful. I wonder if anyone can stand against it. Lin Baikuin looked at the adjutant. Can you get in touch with Guki? He was able to predict the disaster, so his strength must be extraordinary. The adjutant shook his head. The Mecha Beast network requires adding someone as a friend to contact them. We don't have his contact information. At this moment, I was leaving the first district, speeding toward the second district. I activated the second form of my black dragon armor, growing to ferocious black dragons from my back, which were covered in dragon pattern plating. Any giant I slaughtered along the way would immediately have its heart torn out and devoured by the twin dragons. Just then, Chu Quan's transmission came through. Boss, are you heading to the second district? I replied calmly, I'm on my way. You guys don't need to come over. I can handle him alone. Chu Quan agreed without a second thought. All right, then we won't head over there. In his eyes, what I said was never out of arrogance, but rather a matter of fact. After entering the second district, I encountered dozens of giants running wild. Upon discovering me, a thick white mist immediately surged around them as they lunged at me. A cold gleam flashed through my eyes. Dark Thunder Dragon, 10 directions total annihilation. A 9-pointed star array instantly manifested in the sky hundreds of feet around us. 18 Thunder Dragons roared and pounced upon the giants. Screams of agony echoed one after another. As all the giants were torn to shreds by the Thunder Dragons, the ground turned into a scorched, blackened wasteland. I quickly devoured all of their hearts, and continued to speed toward the armored red giant. After wiping out several hundred giants, I finally arrived at the scene. I landed atop a 10-story building, the twin dragons circling behind my back, as I gazed indifferently at the battle below. At this very moment, the satellite was broadcasting this battle live across the entire nation. Fighting against the armored red giant were a man in savage crocodile armor, and a woman in ice wild goose armor. The man in savage crocodile armor held a shield in one hand and a broadsword in the other, barely managing to withstand the armored red giant's fiery fists. The woman in ice wild goose armor held a frost longbow, moving around the perimeter and aiming for the giant's eyes. I watched for a brief moment and shook my head. Pure amateur hour. From my vantage point, it was crystal clear. The armored red giant was simply playing with them. It was treating them like annoying flies, capable of swatting them to death at any given second. More and more Mecha Beast warriors arrived to watch the battle. However, the giants that had initially gathered suddenly retreated completely. This bizarre sight left Lin Baikuin, who was far away in the operations hall, thoroughly perplexed as well. On another tall building, John Luochin and dozens of his subordinates watched coldly from the sidelines. The man in black leopard armor smirked. Boss, when do we make our move? John Luochin said with disdain. What's the rush? Let these two suicidal fools die first. Suddenly, the armored red giant let out a deafening, furious roar. From the armor on its back, it pulled out a massive great axe blazing with roaring flames. Stepping forward, it unleashed a terrifying aura. The weapons of the man in savage crocodile armor were instantly knocked flying, his armor covered in countless fractures, before both man and armor violently shattered apart. The woman in ice wild goose armor was scared out of her wits, and turned around to flee, but the armored red giant didn't give her the slightest chance. It raised the massive axe high, and unleashed a blazing axe scale dozens of yards long, instantly engulfing the woman in ice wild goose armor. Two top-tier Mecha Beast warriors couldn't even withstand a single strike. Insta-killed. This beast was hiding its true strength. It deliberately lured us here to wipe us all out in one fell swoop. The spectating Mecha Beast warriors backed away in pure terror. Many of their super beasts were issuing warnings of intense fear. Right at that moment, the vertical eye at the center of the armored red giant's brow finally snapped open. A beam of crimson light shot out, instantly expanding into a massive barrier that completely enveloped the area for 4 or 5 miles around. The more than 10,000 Mecha Beast warriors present were all trapped inside. They frantically attacked the barrier, only to find that it was absolutely impossible to break through. A sense of sheer despair spread like a plague among them. The woman in the vermilion bird armor had just entered the barrier's range. Seeing the panicked crowd, she paid them no mind. Unfurling her wings, she headed straight for the central zone, wanting to see just how strong this armored red giant really was. Upon approaching the battlefield, she saw Zhang Luochen leading 5 of his subordinates to besiege the armored red giant. Zhang Luochen held the Holy Dragon King sword, which radiated a brilliant golden light. He was actually able to go head-to-head with the armored red giant without being pushed back. Right at that moment, the vermilion bird warrior felt an immensely oppressive gaze land on her body. She turned her head to look, only to see me standing atop the tall skyscraper, twin black dragons circling behind my back. Looking down upon the battlefield like a sovereign monarch, the vermilion bird warrior landed beside me, taking the initiative to greet me. "Hello, may I ask how to address you?" My gaze swept over the vermilion bird armor covering her body, and I said calmly, "That vermilion bird armor is quite decent. Any interest in joining the New God group?" The vermilion bird warrior was slightly startled. "Are you Mr. Gu, the head of the New God group?" I nodded slightly. "I am." The vermilion bird warrior gave me a deep look, shook her head, and replied, "I'm sorry, but I cannot accept." I didn't say anything further, turning my gaze back to the battle below. Although this woman was strong, she wasn't a mandatory recruit. The battle below grew exceptionally fierce. Zhang Luochen was responsible for confronting it head-on. The woman in peacock armor provided long-range suppression, while the remaining 3 took the opportunity to deal damage. Their coordination was seamless. They were actually suppressing and beating down the armored red giant. The vermilion bird warrior said, in surprise, "Their teamwork is incredibly seamless." My eyes flashed with disdain. In the face of absolute power, what use is teamwork? They stand absolutely no chance of getting this giant's core. The vermilion bird warrior was taken aback. "Are you going to steal it? They won't be easy to deal with, especially that man in the golden dragon armor. He's absurdly strong." I smiled calmly. "Strong? You think too highly of them. Do you truly believe this giant has used its full strength?" No sooner had I spoken than the tide of battle abruptly shifted. Thoroughly annoyed by their persistence, harassment, the armored red giant let out a furious roar. Dozens of ferocious, spiked tentacles erupted from its back, and its ore instantly surged several times over. As the tentacles swept across, all 5 members of Zhang Luochen's team were sent flying through the air. Holy Dragon Miracle, Judgment of Heaven. Once Zhang Luochen stabilized his form, he immediately unleashed his ultimate finishing move, his holy sword, transformed into a dragon blade hundreds of feet long, chopping down from above. The other 4 also unleashed their respective holy miracles. 5 world-destroying attacks went flying straight toward the armored red giant. Sensing the threat, the armored red giant immediately recalled the light curtain enveloping the area, condensing it into a protective shield around itself. Boom, boom, boom. A world-shaking explosion echoed throughout the entire second district. The armored red giant was instantly engulfed by the 5 beams of intense light. The surface of the ground collapsed downward by nearly 40 feet. The blinding glare made it impossible for anyone to open their eyes. The ultimate combined strike of Zhang Luochen's team of 5 possessed terrifying power, forcibly forcing the armored red giant into absolute defense. The violent energy blasted the ground hundreds of yards around, hollowing it out by nearly 40 feet. Everyone stared dead into the deep crater, praying that the armored red giant had perished right there. Zhang Luochen looked at his exhausted companions and smiled. "Even if that beast is still alive, it absolutely has no strength left to fight. Prepare to carve out its heart." The spectating Mecha Beast warriors all let out a collective sigh of relief, looking toward Zhang Luochen with eyes full of absolute awe. Even Lin Baikuan, far away in the government fortress, finally let go of the anxiety weighing on his heart. However, I shook my head with amusement. "Defeated. You think far too highly of them." Just as the vermilion bird warrior was about to ask, a massive, crimson pillar of light suddenly erupted from the deep crater, soaring into the heavens, lighting up the entire night sky as bright as day. The armored red giant leapt out from the pit, its entire body covered in a flawless, pristine set of red armor, with 9 thick tentacles dancing wildly behind its back. Its aura had skyrocketed several times over compared to before. "Is this thing a fucking unkillable cockroach?" Everyone present was scared out of their wits. Zhang Luochen's face turned pale as a sheet as he shouted, "Retreat. This giant possesses 3 distinct forms. No one is its match right now." The vermilion bird warrior looked at the crowd scattering in panic. She turned her head to look at me, who remained entirely calm throughout. Right at that moment, I vanished from the spot, turning into a streak of black lightning that blocked the path right in front of the armored red giant. He actually dares to face that giant completely alone. The vermilion bird warrior's eyes widened in sheer shock. The fleeing Mecha Beast warriors also stopped in their tracks one after another. The armored red giant let out a furious roar, the flame on its massive axe expanding violently as it chopped straight down at my head like an eternal crimson sun. The destructive power of of this single strike was several times more potent than when it dealt with Zhang Luochen, the dispersing shockwave aura made even the distant onlookers feel completely suffocated. The twin dragons behind my back rushed out with a roaring howl, forcibly blocking this earth-shattering axe blow. Qion God-slaying spear. Arm. God-slaying system. Celestial beat. Giving the armored red giant absolutely no time to react. I directly unleashed my most powerful finishing move. A 9-star alignment hung high across the vast sky, lightning and cosmic flame intertwining into a torrent of pure destruction, instantly engulfing the armored red giant. Accompanied by a piercing, agonizing shriek, the armored red giant's body completely disintegrated amid the star flames, turning entirely to ash. The surface of the ground was pierced through, leaving a bottomless chasm. In midair, only a basketball-sized red core remained. The entire area fell into a dead, absolute silence. Countless Mecha Beast warriors stared up with their mouths wide open, gazing at that figure bathed in lightning up in the night sky, completely forgetting to even breathe. The vermilion bird warrior's worldview was shattered to pieces. She had initially thought there would be a brutal, bloody struggle, but she never expected the armored red giant to be insta-killed by me. A single move. A powerful surge of regret suddenly swelled within her heart, wishing she hadn't rejected the offer to join the new god group just now. Zhang Luochen clenched his fists tightly, his face darkening so much it looked as if it could drip water. As a fanatical worshipper of Western dragons, he absolutely could not accept that an enemy he couldn't even dent was insta-killed so effortlessly by an Eastern black dragon. Retreat. Gritting his teeth, he called out to his subordinates, and left without ever looking back. I beckoned with my hand, drawing a red core into my palm, sensing the immense and pure energy within it. My heart felt a slight touch of surprise. I immediately catalyzed my 3 super beasts to absorb it simultaneously. After 10 or so seconds, the core dissolved into dust and drifted away. Raising 3 super beasts was indeed a heavy burden. Even a core of this massive size failed to trigger a level up. I shook my head, stepped through the air a few times, and vanished into the night. The number of giants that died by my hand tonight was at least 5,000. If I only had a single super beast to nourish, it would likely be very close to level 5 by now. Just as the vermilion bird warrior was preparing to leave, her leader, Towdy, suddenly contacted her. Vermilion bird, I heard that the armored red giant was insta-killed by a man in black dragon armor. Yes. Leader Lu. It was Guki from the new god group. He is so terrifyingly powerful it makes one shudder. Towdy gritted his teeth in pure hatred. Guki, it really is a small world. Back then, he ruined my family and destroyed my life. My father jumped off a building entirely because of him. This absolute hatred can never be reconciled under the same sky. The vermilion bird warrior let out a bitter smile. Leader Lu, if I may be completely blunt, you are absolutely no match for him. I have no intention of following you to an early grave. Let's just go our separate ways from now on. After saying that, she directly cut off the transmission, then had her super beast send me a friend request. Once the request was accepted, my voice echoed directly inside her mind. What's the matter? Changed your mind? The vermilion bird warrior said hurriedly. Mr. Gu, I have no desire to be your enemy. Just now, Towdy mentioned I cut her off calmly. Wu Yuan. Never heard of him. 4 years ago, I did indeed bring down a Lu corporation. If he wants revenge, tell him to come find me. Anyway, earlier you rejected my offer to join the new god group. Have you thoroughly thought it through now? If you join us, when Lu Yuan comes seeking vendetta in the future, you will be standing on opposite sides as enemies. The vermilion bird warrior replied without a shred of hesitation. I've only crossed paths with him once. How could I possibly ruin my own future for the sake of a complete stranger? 8 o'clock in the morning, outside the new god shelter fortress. After I ended the call, the vermilion bird warrior unfurled her wings, transforming into a streak of fire to continue hunting giants. There were still less than 3 hours left before dawn. The wave of giants that crawled onto the surface is gradually dwindling, but Old Black said, these are all merely appetizers. If a massive swarm of armored red giants appears later, how on earth will humanity cope? Many powerful Mecha Beast warriors feel that this disaster is not a fatal catastrophe. However, they have absolutely no idea just how many innocent lives vanished forever during this single night. Out of Upper City's 7 million population, only around 2,600,000 managed to hide inside shelter fortresses. Out of the 4 to 5 million people remaining outside, well over half perished inside the stomachs of the giants in just one night. As dawn broke, the heavily scarred Upper City finally quieted down. Of the million giants that crawled out from the chasm last night, nearly all have been slaughtered, with very few remaining. The streets and residential complexes are littered everywhere with the corpses of giants. The 3 abyssal cracks are dead silent. Since 1 o'clock in the morning, not a single giant has crawled out, but this is merely the beginning. The global population of 10 billion was drastically slashed by more than half overnight. At 8 o'clock in the morning, I turned into a streak of lightning and landed right outside the main gate of the new god shelter fortress. Since 5:30, Zhao Yufei, who had been waiting at the gate, quickly stepped forward to greet me, calling out, Mr. Gu. After a night of hunting, her super beast has already reached level 4. Yet, in front of me, she still behaves with extreme caution. I nodded at her, dispelled my dragon helm, scanned my face, and opened the gate. Zhao Yufei followed closely behind me and said, in a low voice, Mr. Gu, right now, there are many organizations coveting this fortress of yours. She informed me that major factions, like the Dragon King Palace and the Heavenly Slayer Society, which boast tens of thousands of members, have already emerged in Upper City. I replied indifferently, if this rabble dares to engage in infighting, I don't mind completely wiping every single one of them out. After entering the fortress, I took Zhao Yufei with me to complete her registration, then returned to my office on the top floor of the new god building. I had just finished my shower and breakfast when Lin Baikuin's voice call via WeChat came through. Because I was out hunting giants all night, I hadn't carried my phone on my body at all, so I had missed more than a dozen of his calls. Leaning back on the sofa, I lit up a cigarette and asked, General Lin, what's the matter? Lin Baikuin let out a deep sigh. Mr. Gu, last night in Upper City, over 3 million ordinary people died inside the mouths of the giants. I want to take advantage of the fact that the giants are mostly cleared out right now to bring the remaining 1,300,000 survivors to the rear of the fortress. What do you think about this? I nodded and said, that is an excellent idea. I will dispatch all of the new god groups, Mecha Beast warriors, to head out and assist. Lin Baikuin smiled bitterly and said, the Mecha Beast warriors out there aren't easy to rally. They all feel that they were abandoned by the authorities, unless we can find the powerhouse who insta-killed the armored red giant last night. Otherwise, it's just too difficult. I smiled faintly. General Lin, is it possible that the person you're speaking of is me? Lin Baikuin was both shocked and overjoyed. Mr. Gu, it really is you. Accept no substitutes. I will issue a rallying call on the Mecha Beast network under the name of Black Dragon. I can't guarantee how many people will respond, but I will do my best. After ending the call, Old Black's voice echoed lazily over. Kid Gu, for the swarm of giants coming at midnight tonight, you had better prepare yourself for a bloody battle. In terms of both numbers and strength, they are far beyond what we saw last night. As long as we can hold off this single wave, no more giants will appear for an entire week. When that time comes, astral seeds, which possess far higher energy than a giant's heart, will grow in many places. Hearing this, I logged into the Mecha Beast network, only to find that on the page, a merit leaderboard had been added, which wasn't there last night. At the very top of the board was none other than myself, Black Dragon. Merit points, 987,600. Not only did it far surpass the second place, Kunpeng, who had 737,800, but it was also more than the next several rankings combined. The leaderboard description stated, the first 100 people to reach 900 million merit points will be rewarded with an opportunity to summon a Mecha Beast form. Curiously, I asked Old Black, don't super beasts need to reach level 6 before they can summon a Mecha form? Old Black said lazily, theoretically, yes, but the success rate is absurdly low. The summoning opportunities rewarded by the Mecha Beast King network can guarantee a direct, successful summon, and you happen to have 3 super beasts. Each of them can be summoned once, but don't even think about it until they reach level 12. I didn't ask any further questions. I posted a public announcement on the Upper City channel, rallying all Mecha Beast warriors to escort survivors to either the government fortress or the new god shelter fortress. The name Black Dragon had already shaken Upper City last night. Within a mere few dozen seconds of posting, there were over 1,000 replies. Countless Mecha Beast warriors responded one after another, with many even expressing their desire to join the new god group. Just then, Sumuya pushed the door open, entered, and asked, Mr. Gu, what are your orders? I stubbled out my cigarette butt. Next, a massive wave of Mecha Beast warriors will come to join us. Don't take any rest today. You're responsible for getting them settled in. The Mecha Beast sector still has over 60,000 vacant rooms. If that's not enough, put 2 people to a room to make do for now. Also, send out a notice to let all Mecha Beast warriors without active missions get some good rest. There will be a brutal battle tonight. Sumuyao nodded earnestly. Yes, sir. Meanwhile, in a dim room of a certain underground boxing ring in Upper City, a conspiracy targeting me was currently brewing. Zhang Luochen swirled his wine glass and said to Touty, the Rakshasa woman, and the Palace King, if Guki doesn't die, we will never be able to completely control Upper City. The Rakshasa woman frowned, but he can insta-kill an armored red giant in a single move. Even if the 4 of us team up, we might not be his match. Zhang Luochen said confidently, Touty and I will lead the main assault, while you and the Palace King handle the distraction. I'm certain I can interrupt him when he deploys his celestial bead. Lu Yuan gritted his teeth and said, take action tonight, while not many people have joined him yet, right when he heads out to hunt giants. That's our golden opportunity. The Palace King pondered for a brief moment, then slowly nodded his head. The others exchanged glances, and nodded one after another. The Rakshasa woman frowned. Since a giant swarm is attacking tonight, we need to scout the terrain in advance, just to be absolutely safe. The others expressed their agreement as well. The red moon hung high in the sky. Ever since the earth split open, the daytime had been getting shorter and shorter. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before the sun vanished forever, and the blood moon completely took over the sky. Standing on the rooftop of the new god building, I swirled my red wine glass, watching the Mecha Beast warriors arriving from all directions. They were herding a massive crowd of survivors forward, every single face written with pure terror. Having experienced too much life and death separation, they had long since become jumpy at the slightest sound. Is this only the first batch arriving? I raised an eyebrow, somewhat dissatisfied with this efficiency. At this rate, at most a second batch could arrive before 9 nightfall, as for a third or fourth batch. Once night descended and the giants crawled out. Whether they could even make it here alive remained completely unknown. I looked up at the blood moon in the sky. It was larger and rounder than yesterday, its red hue glaringly piercing. Right at that moment, across the entire upper city, a series of roars suddenly erupted one after another. The sounds came from deep within the chasms, as orderly as a disciplined army. On a certain street, the Mecha Beast warriors escorting survivors suddenly halted their steps. The man leading them in dark gold armor frowned and said, "Did you guys hear that?" Another person replied nervously, "I heard it. There's still half an hour before it gets dark. We need to hurry up." Suddenly, the leading man pointed ahead and said, in terror, "Wait a second. What on earth is that up ahead?" In the chasm not far away, a giant hand covered in crimson scales was wedged tight. The man in dark gold armor waved his hand dismissively. "It's just a severed hand. What's there to be afraid of? Keep moving." With a sudden, massive tearing crash, the ground abruptly caved in, forming a colossal deep crater. A powerful suction force drew in the surrounding buildings, along with the man in dark gold armor, and they instantly vanished without a trace. The deep crater only existed for a fleeting split second. After swallowing everything up, it rapidly closed back up. The remaining Mecha Beast warriors were scared out of their wits, abandoning the survivors and scattering in all directions. At the same time, a massive influx of distress messages suddenly flooded the Mecha Beast network. Every single message was talking about the exact same thing. Even more terrifying monsters have crawled out from underground. Sumuya rushed onto the rooftop in a panic and said, "Mr. Gu, have you checked the Mecha Beast network? The second escort team was intercepted, and we've completely lost contact with them." I let out a soft murmur of agreement. Before she came in, I had already seen those messages. Old Black's voice echoed over lazily. Now that humans have super beasts to rely on, and the blood moon has descended, the giants will naturally evolve as well. "This is merely the first stage," Sumuya asked in surprise. "Are they coming out ahead of schedule?" "No. They are waiting for the arrival of a truly big fellow." I could feel that something was lurking in the shadows, spying on me. This spine-chilling sensation, far from making me afraid, actually made my blood boil with excitement. Yesterday's small fries weren't even enough to satisfy my appetite. Now, there was finally an opponent worth looking at. Inside the underground boxing ring, the Rakshasa woman looked at the Mecha Beast network and frowned. An unexpected twist has occurred outside. Is our plan still going forward? John Luochin swirled his beer ball, his eyes completely consumed by madness. Of course, it's going forward. The more chaotic it gets, the greater our chance of killing him. The woman in peacock armor wanted to say something more, but he cut her off directly. "No, but now is not the time for misguided compassion." As darkness gradually fell, a gale force wind began to rage fiercely. Countless giant organisms were squirming beneath the surface, covering the entire underground like subterranean dragons. In just a short 3 hours, over 1,000 Mecha Beast warriors lost their lives, and the number of ordinary people who died was completely beyond count. Wave after wave of attacks gave absolutely no one a single moment to catch their breath. Right at that moment, Mecha Beast warriors all over the world felt a truly horrifying aura, as if some ancient, colossal beast was about to awaken. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. I could clearly feel that the spine sensation was originating from the city center. John Luochin led his team out of the underground boxing ring. Outside, it was pitch black, and flashes of lightning ripped through the night sky, illuminating their sinister faces. The Mecha Beast units have already mobilized. We must reach the city center before Guki does. John Luochin smiled wickedly. The city center is heavily populated, which makes it the easiest place to attract giants. Gukai's first stop will definitely be there. He gave his orders. "Lu Yuan, you and I will wait here. Rakshasa woman, Palace King, you to go set up an ambush beneath those buildings over there." Lu Yuan asked, "What if the new giants don't show up?" A flash of sheer ruthlessness crossed John Luochin's eyes. "Don't worry, they will come." To ensure that absolutely nothing went wrong, he had actually sent his men to herd a group of ordinary humans to the city center to serve as bait. In his eyes, these ordinary people who hadn't formed a pact with a super beast were going to die sooner or later anyway. They might as well do him a small favor before they expire. 10 minutes later, his subordinates arrived with that group of humans. The leading man in cheetah armor said sycophantically, "Boss John, we've brought the people you requested." John Luochin waved his hand. "Well done. You guys can go rest now." However, just as those four subordinates turned around to leave, the ground suddenly caved in, and a powerful suction force instantly dragged them right into it. One person vanished on the spot, while the remaining three struggled desperately. The woman in peacock armor was greatly alarmed. Darkness has only just fallen. How did these monsters get here so quickly? The Rakshasa woman saw the true face of the subterranean creature. It was a pool of soft, sludge-like organism, its consuming maw lined with several rows of fine, sharp teeth, making one's skin crawl at the sight. "Boss John, save me." The man in cheetah armor let out a desperate cry for help. His legs already ground into a bloody, mangled mess by the teeth. Right at that moment, a blue figure flashed past, scooping the man in cheetah armor right out. It was a girl of 16 or 17, wearing bird-themed armor. With a pair of massive blue wings on her back, she glared furiously at John Luochin and his group, saying coldly, "So you people intend to just stand by and watch them die?" The woman in peacock armor quickly replied, "We just hadn't had the time to take action yet." The girl let out a cold snort. "Scum like you don't even deserve to form a pact with a super beast. What an absolute waste." The Rakshasa woman stepped forward with a a soft chuckle, though her eyes held no warmth at all. Little sister, you shouldn't talk like that. You're still too young to understand the pros and cons. Suddenly, the palace king let out a startled cry. Watch out. Everyone rapidly retreated. They saw those sludge-like monsters, all floating up into the air, flying off toward the exact same direction. Not only that, but even the giants, who were currently devouring humans, stopped their actions, kneeling down in unison toward the direction of the city center. Accompanied by deafening crashes of thunder from within the largest chasm, a red tentacle reached out. Immediately following it was a second one, then a third. Within moments, a dense mass of tentacles surged out from the crack on a distant rooftop. Chu Quan frowned and said, "What kind of ghost creature is that? An octopus?" Guan Hu shook his head. "Doesn't look like it. What kind of octopus has this many tentacles?" He turned to look at me and asked, "Boss, what do you think?" Standing at the very front of the unit, I stared dead into the depths of the chasm, the corners of my mouth curving slightly into a smile. "I think it's an eye." Chu Quan let out a soft laugh. "Stop joking around. How could that possibly be?" Before he could even finish his sentence, a colossal, golden yellow eyeball crawled out from within the chasm that I stared directly at me, as if it could pierce right through my soul. The three super beasts inside my body clamored frantically. This wasn't out of fear, but pure excitement, the thrill of being about to devour a powerful enemy to acquire even greater strength. Everyone was completely dumbfounded by this giant eye, failing to notice entirely that the blood moon in the sky had become even more bizarre. A dark crimson light washed over the earth, and the eyes of all the giants turned a deep, glowing crimson. In an instant, the bodies of all the giants began to swell, at a speed visible to the naked eye, not stopping their growth until they reached 3 times their original size. Piercing shrieks of agony echoed from the eastern ruins. A warrior in flying tiger armor didn't even have time to react before being crushed to death by a giant, spraying fresh blood all over the face of his companion beside him. I said coldly, "Let's move. Our battle has begun." Chu Quan and the others immediately charged out, while the other Mecha Beast warriors also raised their weapons one after another, locking into a fierce struggle, holding the Qionqi God-slaying spear. I swept through at lightning speed. The mountain-like giants couldn't last more than 3 seconds in front of me. My target was one and one only, that crimson eye. Seeing my figure, the other Mecha Beast warriors all began to cheer aloud. Witnessing this scene, Zhang Luochen spat viciously on the ground. "We can't let the kid get ahead of us. Let's go too." Leading his subordinates, he launched himself forward like a cannonball, all of them wanting to seize this massive achievement, to raise their rankings on the merit leaderboard. Not a single blade of grass grew around the crimson eye, and a scalding aura rushed straight at our faces. I stood atop the highest rooftop, twin black dragons circling behind my back. The vermilion bird warrior landed beside me and smiled, saying, "Did you call me over because of him?" My former leader, Lu Yuan, looked up and spotted us, a murky, unreadable expression in his eyes. Zhao Yufei took the initiative and said, "We've actually been spotted. I'll go say hello." Zhang Luochen charged the fastest, his eyes filled with absolute obsession. I let out a cold snort, a bunch of absolute fools. Right at that moment, countless tentacles erupted, straight out from the ground, forming a massive net that completely enclosed the crowd. In an instant, the tentacles transformed into shark spikes, shooting toward them like raindrops. Zhang Luochen manifested his holy sword, using the holy miracle judgment to block the attack, yet he ended up deflecting the tentacles straight onto the other Mecha Beast warriors. The crowd unleashed their ultimate finishing moves one after another, but all of their skills collapsed the exact moment they made contact with the crimson eye. Peacock panted heavily and said, "How can this be happening? Is it because we're not close enough?" The Rikshasa woman was also thoroughly exasperated. "What kind of ghost creature is this damn thing anyway?" I let out a faint chuckle, turned around, and ran in the complete opposite direction. This scene left everyone entirely dumbfounded. The Mecha Beast network instantly exploded with frantic activity. Some said I was terrifying. Others claimed I was a coward who feared death. Lin Baikuan was also pacing around in a desperate panic, but he knew deep down that I was absolutely not someone who would run away. I ran until I reached a position directly opposite the crimson eye and halted. The Qionqi God-slaying spear in my hand ignited with a crimson flame. God-slaying miracle, Earth Splitter. The twin black dragons behind my back soared straight into the clouds, then violently dove straight into the ground. The surface instantly ruptured into a massive hole over 100 feet wide. Accompanied by an agonizing shriek, the true crimson eye emerged from within the hole. Everyone was completely stunned. What? How can there be 2 crimson eyes? It turned out that the one they had been attacking earlier was merely an illusion. The true entity had been hiding underground the entire time, waiting for them to exhaust all of their strength. I smiled coldly. "Your calculations were excellent, but unfortunately for you, you crossed paths with me." God-slaying ultimate move, a 5-clawed black dragon blazing with roaring fire, erupted straight out of my body, letting out a deafening roar. It instantly dove into the subterranean hole, blasting the true crimson eye completely into pieces. As the main entity dissolved, the illusion up in the sky vanished as well. The commentary on the Mecha Beast network inverted in an instant. Everyone began praising me like crazy. Zhang Luochen and his group stood frozen on the spot, shock written all over their faces. The Rikshasa woman muttered, "I never imagined that his power could actually be terrifying to this extent." Peacock also said, in a low voice, "Can we really handle a person like that?" Zhang Luochen stared dead at me. gritting his teeth in pure rage. Damn it. Sensing his gaze, I slowly turned my head and locked eyes with him. However, I didn't care about this mere ant at all. I looked down at the object in my hand, an egg-sized, blood-red core. Although this core was relatively small, it contained an exceptionally vast amount of energy. I finished absorbing the core, only to find that my 3 super beasts still showed no signs of leveling up. It seems I will need even more powerful energy. Just then, Chu Quan arrived running with his men to report. Boss, the giants to the east have been completely slaughtered. The ones on the other side are wiped out too. We found the bodies of the 3rd escort team. Only 2 Mecha Beast warriors are still alive, but both are severely injured. His expression was grave, clearly shaken by the tragic scene at the location. I gave the order. Bring those back to the base. My base houses a top-tier medical team. As long as they still have a single breath left, they can be saved. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that things weren't this simple. The Crimson, I should have been stronger than the armored red giant. How could it be insta-killed by me? A single strike. In the grand scheme of things, I felt as though an even larger net was closing in around us. Mr. Gu, watch out. An ice blue arrow suddenly came rushing through the air, brushing past Chu Quan's cheek and flying straight toward me. Without even turning my head, I reached out and caught the arrow, crushing it completely into fine dust with a gentle squeeze. Not far away, a girl of 16 or 17 held an ice bat, her eyes completely filled with fury. She said angrily, "Where is my sister? Give my sister back to me right now." An instant surge of killing intent ignited in Chu Quan's eyes. Even though the opponent was merely a young girl, he didn't restrain himself at all. Chu Quan said with menacing aura, "A little brat actually dares to pull a stunt like this. Talk about completely overestimating yourself." The little girl backed away in a panicked flurry, putting on a brave face while bluffing. "If you come any closer, I won't be easy on you." Chu Quan scoffed, "With just your amateur skills." I opened my mouth and said, "Hold on." I turned around to look at her. This girl looked petite and cute, her cheeks completely flushed red at this moment, as she glared at Chu Quan with sheer resentment. I asked, "What is this sister you're talking about all about?" The girl gritted her teeth. "My sister left the house, saying she was coming to look for you. Have none of you seen her?" Alet, a familiar voice echoed from the side, and the woman in the ice wild goose armor came flying over, saying in surprise, "Didn't I tell you to stay at home? Why did you run out here?" The young girl let out a massive sigh of relief, saying, "I heard that riots broke out outside, and I was terrified that something happened to you, so I ran over to rescue you." So that was how it was. Ding Q turned her head to look at me, her face full of apology. "I am truly sorry. I apologize to everyone on behalf of my little sister." After saying that, her eyes sparkled as she looked at me and said, "Mr. Gu, I came here to seek refuge with you. I want to join your unit." I looked the 2 sisters up and down. Their armor and weapons were nearly identical. Ding Q scratched her head in embarrassment. "Our super beasts are a bonded pair. The ice sparrows are twins, raised by my sister and me since we were young." I said calmly, "The 2 of you may enter the base, but you cannot join the vanguard unit. You are far too weak and still require heavy training." A hint of surprise flashed through Guan Hu's eyes, since that single arrow from just now had already surpassed the level of most Mecha Beast warriors. I continued, "You can't even fully control your own weapons. You 2 definitely need to practice a lot more." Ding Q fell silent for a brief moment, determination flashing through her eyes as she said, "I understand. However, I will not give up. I will absolutely rely on my own hard work to earn a spot in your unit." I gave the instruction, "John Feng, take them to Sisu Muya and have her arrange a room for them." John Feng nodded. "Understood. You 2 follow me." With the slaughter of the Crimson Eye, the evolutionary power driving the giants dissolved as well. In just a matter of a few short hours, every single giant that had crawled out from the cracks was completely butchered onto the ground. Inside the boxing ring, John Luochen and his group of four returned empty-handed in utter disappointment. John Luochen took a violent chug of strong liquor and roared in anger. The plan was interrupted before it could even begin. "What do we do now?" The palace king rubbed his bald head, venting his resentment. "We worked our asses off for nothing, only for the kid to swoop in and take all the credit." The Rakshasa woman let out a mocking scoff. "With those amateur skills of yours, you dare call it working hard? Speaking of which, I actually have an excellent idea. Depending on whether you all are willing to put in the effort." Lu Yuan sat up straight and said, "Oh, what kind of idea? Let's hear it." The Rakshasa woman smiled. "Do you still remember the Vermilion Bird Warrior? She has already joined Gukai's team. However, I recall that she has a younger brother, right? If we track her brother down, do you think she'd do exactly what we say?" John Luochen roared in sheer ecstasy. "Excellent, excellent, excellent. With this leverage in our hands, we don't have to worry about her disobeying us," the Rakshasa woman said with absolute confidence. "Of course he's not inside the base. He's right here with me." On the other side, we had already returned to the base. Lin Baikuin had been waiting there for a long time, flanked by 4 burly Mecha Beast warriors. He quickly stepped forward to greet us. "You finally arrived." I raised an eyebrow and asked, "General Lin, I wonder what business you have with me." Lin Baikuin's face showed a troubled look, as he said, Mainly, I'd like to ask you to handle a small matter. The outer walls of the fortress outside are mostly destroyed, and an engineering crew is currently trapped in the outer zone. A coastal giant is lurking over there. We already dispatched a team to that area, but there has been absolutely no word from them since. He handed me a map, with the danger zones marked heavily in red ink. I pointed to a blacked out area right in the center, and asked, "What is this location?" Lin Baikuin's face turned pale as a sheet in an instant, his lips trembling as he said, "A terrifying creature is lurking in this location. It is shaped like an octopus, and for 12 miles around. Its tentacles have interwoven to form a massive web of flesh." A glimmer of interest flashed across my eyes, and I agreed readily. "All right. Leave this matter to me." Lin Baikuin let out a sigh of relief, and said, "These four are men under my command. They have seen the members of the engineering crew, so you can take them along with you." I turned toward Chu Quan and said, "Once daytime comes, you take Guan Hu and Zhang Feng, along with these four men, to rescue the engineering crew. Make absolutely sure to bring them into the fortress before nightfall." Lin Baikuin asked, "What about you?" I let out a faint chuckle, my eyes completely filled with a fanatical zeal for battle. "Naturally, I am going to head over to meet this so-called terrifying creature." Inside the fortress, the vermilion bird warrior was anxiously dialing her brother's phone number. This was already the 10th time, yet no one picked up. Just when she was about to fall into despair, her phone suddenly rang. Fumbling in a frantic rush, she picked up the call. Hearing her younger brother's clear voice, the heart that had been hanging in suspense finally settled down. Zhao Yuhan said, "Sis, I heard the fortress is currently taking people in. Do you have a way to get me inside?" The vermilion bird warrior asked, "Have you formed a contract with a super beast?" Zhao Yuhan replied, "No." The vermilion bird warrior fell silent for a brief moment and said, "Stay right where you are for now. I'll come pick you up tomorrow." Hanging up the phone, Zhao Yuhan raised his head, looking at the Rakshasa woman sycophantically, and asked, "Sis, how did I do?" The Rakshasa woman let out a soft chuckle. "You did quite well. You kid actually set up a trap for your own biological sister." Zhao Yuhan said with pure resentment, "What use is a biological sister? When disaster struck, didn't she just abandon me and run off?" The Rakshasa woman walked out of the room, and Zhang Luochen and the others immediately gathered around, asking, "How did things go?" The Rakshasa woman nodded and said, "Everything went very smoothly. The vermilion bird warrior will come over tomorrow. All of you get ready. I certainly don't want our plan to fall through once again." The gaze Zhang Luochen used to look at the Rakshasa woman carried a slight touch of eccentricity. Though it quickly returned to normal, he understood perfectly well that this woman was absolutely not a benevolent soul. Clapping his hands, he laughed loudly. "Excellent, as expected of you." The eyes of the others were also filled with absolute determination to succeed. At 9 o'clock in the morning, dawn finally broke. However, daytime now lasted for a mere 3 hours. Once it passed 12 o'clock, darkness would descend once more. Looking at the fully equipped crowd, I said, "Let's move. Follow me out." Our paths overlapped for the first half of the journey. My speed was exceptionally fast. Guan Hu and Zhang Feng followed closely behind my back. The other for military Mecha Beast warriors, however, found running to be quite a struggle, and were left quite a distance behind us. Upon arriving at the first red dot marked on the map, I halted my steps and said, "You guys be a bit careful. If anything happens, call me immediately." Guan Hu nodded and said, "Rest assured, boss. Giants won't come out during the day. We will definitely accomplish this minor task." At the same time, my movements quickly spread across the entire Mecha Beast network. Quite a few people were curious about where I was heading in such a frantic rush, and some even began harboring sinister intentions. They felt that an area cordoned off by the military must contain some excellent treasures, so they began rushing toward my direction one after another. I naturally saw the discussions on the Mecha Beast network, and noticed the few Mecha Beast warriors tailing behind me. The greed in their eyes was completely undisguised. I let out a cold snort. Good words can't persuade a ghost bent on dying, since they were absolutely determined to throw away their lives. There was no need for me to give them any warning. I accelerated my speed and flew ahead. Suddenly, a massive crash echoed out, and a bolt of lightning as thick as a barrel struck the tall building up ahead. Right at that split second, I saw tens of thousands of thick, colossal tentacles reach out, then immediately retract back inside. These tentacles were far thicker and more powerful than those of the Crimson Eye. They were covered in a layer of pitch-black armor. It was exactly as Lin Baikuin described. It resembled a colossal octopus. The few people following behind also witnessed this scene, and halted their steps in pure terror. A terrifying aura instantly spread through the area. We had already entered the octopus's domain. For some unknown reason, I couldn't help but feel that this creature gave me a highly familiar sensation. What on earth is this damn thing? One Mecha Beast warrior took a step back in fear, his voice trembling completely. The woman beside him in golden rooster armor said with disdain, "What are you afraid of? Don't we have Mr. Gu right here?" A contemptuous smile curled on the corners of my mouth. In the next second, the earth shattered and the sky caved in, as a torrent of rolling heavenly thunder poured straight down. The tentacles lurking underground all reached out. Their pink, fleshy bodies were covered in a slimy liquid, emitting a nauseating, putrid stench. A few people whose reactions were a bit slow became thoroughly lightheaded and dizzy from the foul odor, nearly falling over. The octopus seemed to catch the scent of living humans, and a tentacle violently lashed out toward the golden Golden Rooster Armor warrior. She leapt aside to dodge it, plunging the feather daggers in her hands fiercely into the tentacle, severing it cleanly in a single swift motion. The others also snapped out of it, raising their weapons to engage in a fierce struggle against the tentacles. However, the severed tentacles rapidly grew back, turning entirely purple, and becoming covered all over with sharp barbs. Their regeneration speed was actually faster than the rate at which the crowd could chop them down. Damn it. No matter how we chop these tentacles, they won't stay severed. If this keeps up, we're going to die right here. The Golden Rooster Armor warrior was scared out of her wits. Backing away continuously, they frantically sent out distress messages over the Mecha Beast network, entirely unaware that this entire area had already been cordoned off by a completely transparent barrier. Those inside couldn't get out, and those outside couldn't get in. The Mecha Beast warriors rushing over from the outside discovered that as long as they approached the barrier, their own power would be slowly stripped away. I stood atop the highest rooftop, locking eyes with that massive eyeball on top of the octopus's head. For a full 20 minutes, that eyeball looked exactly identical to the crimson I had killed earlier. I let out a faint chuckle. So, it's an old friend. I finally understood everything. The Crimson Eye was never an independent living organism at all, but a parasitic entity. Even if its body was blasted to pieces, and its core carved out, it could still reincarnate by parasitizing other organisms. Not far away, the Mecha Beast warriors had been tortured until they barely looked human, dropping to their knees on the ground and begging piteously, "Mr. Goo, save us." I didn't move a single inch. If it weren't for the greed harbored in their hearts, they wouldn't have ended up in this wretched state. I am no saint. People who actively seek their own doom are not worth my rescue. The Crimson, I took the initiative to launch an attack. Countless fine red threads crackling with lightning shot out from the eyeball, surging straight toward me. I stood on the spot completely motionless, the smile on my face never even fading. When those fine threads came within 3 feet of me, they were completely blocked by the white mist swirling around my body, unable to advance a single inch. As the two forces continuously clashed, the fine threads snapped bit by bit, scattering all over the ground. The Crimson, I let out a furious roar, and instantly, countless giants with glowing crimson eyes erupted straight out from underground, charging frantically toward me. They didn't cast a single glance at the other Mecha Beast warriors they passed by. Their target was me and me alone. Now this is somewhat interesting. I smiled with amusement, and the Chionchi God-slaying spear suddenly manifested in my hand, carrying waves of roaring fire. God-slaying miracle, sky shatter. Slowly, raising my hand, thousands of flame pillars cascaded down from the heavens. A colossal, fiery red vortex manifested in the sky, drawing even the lightning in the atmosphere right into it. A Chionchi stepped out from the roaring flames onto the ground. Its entire body was fiery red, as if it were the incarnation of flame itself. A sweeping sheet of fire engulfed the earth, scorching the tentacles on the ground until they hissed and smoked, dissolving them into ash within moments. Holding my long spear, with the Chionchi clearing a path ahead, I resembled a dragon bathed in roaring fire, charging straight toward the colossal octopus beast. With a piercing strike, my spear jabbed directly into the Crimson Eye. The colossal octopus beast wanted to retreat, but its body was simply too massive. It only managed to budge a single fraction before I was already right in front of it. I said, indifferently, "I let you escape last time. Now, you're staying right here." An unrivaled force of thunder and cosmic flame erupted from the long spear, instantly piercing through the octopus's massive head. The Crimson Eye immediately detached itself, wanting to flee. One of the black dragons on my shoulder chased after it, submerging right into the interior of the Crimson Eye within 2 seconds. Ah! The Crimson Eye let out a series of bizarre shrieks, its golden pupil gradually turning dim and lifeless. As the black dragon swallowed the entire Crimson Eye into its stomach, the core inside automatically converted into pure power, and following a flash of white light, the black dragon's size doubled. Sensing the surging power inside my body, a glimmer of light flashed through my eyes. The black dragon armor has finally successfully advanced to level 5. Unfortunate that there was only a single core. My other two super beasts still remain stuck at level 4, as the colossal octopus beast crashed heavily to the ground. The surrounding barrier shook a few times and dissolved completely. The Mecha Beast warriors outside swarmed right in, looking at the complete wreckage everywhere and the massive octopus corpse. They were all fairly dumbfounded. Mr. Goo did this. This is far too insane, as expected of the legendary Black Dragon. I didn't care about the crowd's praises at all. Casting an indifferent glance over them, I stepped through the air and flew far away. The objective had already been accomplished. Leave the remaining mess for the military to clean up. The military had set up 24-hour cameras at every high vantage point, along with satellite monitoring, although the vast majority of cameras near the octopus had been smashed and destroyed. One had managed to survive. The footage of my battle was transmitted crystal clear onto the screen, in front of Lin Baikuin. The fur-uniformed Mecha Beast warriors behind his back all stared with their eyes wide open in pure shock. A warrior in Ice Lake armor couldn't help but ask, what on earth is that person's background? How can he unleash such a terrifyingly vast amount of power? Lin Baikuin let out a long, heavy sigh, his fingers gently tapping against the table, as he said in a grave voice, "See that largest shelter fortress outside the city? He was the one who funded and built it." What? The Ice Lake armor. Warrior's face was filled with absolute shock. Lin Baikuin said calmly, "He is Guki, the head of the new god group." A dead silence fell over the office. A brief moment later, Lin Baikuin asked, "Has the engineering crew returned?" A woman wearing Firefox armor nodded. They have been brought back safely. Only a few individuals sustained minor injuries, and they have already been transferred to the subterranean laboratory. Lin Baikuin shook his head. I won't head over there right now. Dispatch more personnel to protect them. The engineering crew is the future hope of humanity. Inside the base, the Vermilion Bird Warrior was staring blankly at her phone. The discussions about me outside were buzzing frantically, yet she didn't care about any of it, her entire heart hanging completely on her younger brother. Logging onto the Mecha Beast network, when she saw the news of me slaughtering the colossal octopus beast, her pupils contracted violently in shock. The coordinates attached to the news report were actually exactly identical to the ones her brother had sent her, her hands trembling violently. The Vermilion Bird Warrior could no longer sit still. She immediately stood up and flew off toward the direction of the coordinates. The giants tonight were exceptionally scarce. She didn't encounter a single one along the entire journey, yet this abnormal, bizarre tranquility, far from soothing her, made the unease in her heart grow increasingly intense. The location of the coordinates was a scene of total destruction. The octopus's corpse had already been transported away by the military. The Vermilion Bird Warrior landed at the central point, trembling as she dialed her brother's phone number. The call was answered very quickly, and Zhao Yuhan's voice came through. Sis, I'm at the Golden Plaza Tower. Wait for me down below. After saying that, he hung up the phone immediately, giving the Vermilion Bird Warrior no opportunity to ask any further questions. The Vermilion Bird Warrior frowned, walking toward the heavily damaged Golden Plaza Tower. Below the skyscraper, severed limbs and shattered walls were scattered everywhere, a faint scent of blood lingering in the air. Just as she reached the bottom of the building, a strange woman's voice came down from above. You really are quite obedient. The moment your little brother tells you to come over, you come right over. The Vermilion Bird Warrior looked up and saw the Rakshasa woman standing by the window of the only completely intact floor, her face filled with sheer mockery. Zhao Yuhan's head peeked out from beside her. Looking in an absolute state of wretchedness, the Vermilion Bird Warrior clenched her fists tightly and said angrily, what exactly do you want to do? The Rakshasa woman let out a soft chuckle. It's quite simple. As long as you do one thing for us, I will release your brother. At this moment, Liu Yuan also poked his head out, his eyes completely consumed by venomous hatred. What? We haven't seen each other for just half a day, and you don't recognize me anymore. You were the one who betrayed me first. He tossed down a tiny black device. During the battle tomorrow night, place this thing directly onto Gukai's body. I'll give you 5 minutes to consider it. The Vermilion Bird Warrior's face was filled with inner conflict, caught completely in a dilemma. On one side was her own biological brother, and on the other side was me, who had shown her great appreciation and kindness. Whichever side she chose, it seemed to lead to a dead end. Just as the time was about to run out, an earth-shattering, colossal explosion suddenly echoed out. The ground began to vibrate frantically, and the buildings shook as if they were about to collapse. A massive crack ripped open right in front of the Vermilion Bird Warrior, continuously extending out toward both sides. This chasm was a full several miles wide, plunging down into a bottomless dark, and it was significantly larger than the previous 3 cracks. The Rakshasa woman was also thoroughly dumbfounded. How could another chasm suddenly rip open out of nowhere? Snapping back to her senses, the Vermilion Bird Warrior contacted me immediately. At this moment, I was sitting inside the conference room with Chu Quan, Su Muyao, and the others flanking both sides. We were currently discussing the upcoming defensive deployments when I suddenly received the urgent message from the Vermilion Bird Warrior. I said with a grave expression, Zhao Yufei just sent over a message at the exact location where the octopus was killed. A brand new chasm has ripped open. Everyone was completely shocked. Chu Quan was the first to react. A chasm, as in the kind that giants crawl out of. I nodded my head. Su Muyao tightly furrowed her brows. There are already 3 of them. How could another one appear completely without any warning? I fell silent for a brief moment, stood up, and said, in this pressing situation, only by heading over to check it out will we know exactly what happened. Outside the Golden Plaza Tower, hearing the sharp, piercing hisses and roars getting closer and closer inside the crack, the Vermilion Bird Warrior backed away a few steps in a panicked rush. That sound was exceptionally grating, as if it wanted to pierce right through a person's eardrums. Countless pairs of pale, withered, and slender arms resembling tree branches were slowly reaching out from within the pitch-black chasm. The 4th crack split the entire Golden Plaza Tower completely into 2. From within the abyssal darkness, waves of sharp roars and shrieks echoed straight into the sky, one after another. Tottering, tiny, infant-like bodies crawled up onto the surface. They possessed the heads of infants, but their arms were just as long as their bodies. On their dead gray skin, blue veins bulged out violently, and their bright red eyes stared dead at everything around them. The Vermilion Bird Warrior drew in a sharp breath of cold air, backing away several steps in a panicked flurry. Right at that moment, the ruin suddenly caved in and collapsed, forcing the Rakshasa woman and Liu Yuan down to the ground level as well. Zhao Yuhang was scared out of his wits, hiding in a corner and trembling violently. The Rakshasa woman swung her barbed long whip, tearing a massive chunk of skin right off one of the monsters with a single strike. Liu Yuan, holding the touty precious sword, unleashed a beam of destructive light that could cleave a monster cleanly in half. Both of them were powerful experts, whose names were well known on the leaderboard. Dealing with these monsters was still well within their capabilities. The Vermilion Bird Warrior took a deep breath, unleashing her own holy miracle. Holy miracle, return of the bathing fire. A colossal firebird erupted out from her long whip, the feathers on its body transforming into countless sharp blades. The surrounding monsters were instantly incinerated into ash. However, an endless stream of monsters continued to surge out from within the crack. The numbers were simply too massive. Their crawling out seemed as if it would never end. Soon, the sounds of fighting attracted nearby Mecha Beast warriors. They had been frustrated over not finding any giants, so seeing so many monsters instantly made them incredibly excited. A man in green snake armor was the first to charge forward, and others joined the fray one after another. This scene quickly spread across the Mecha Beast network, and more Mecha Beast warriors rushed over to provide reinforcement. Meanwhile, I was in the conference room deploying the missions. I looked at Sumuya and said calmly, "Take Zhongfeng with you to scout the terrain first. That will be enough. There is no need to join the battle." Sumuya nodded and said, "Mission guaranteed to be accomplished." I turned to Chu Kuang and said, "Take the others to help slaughter the giants." Chu Kuang rubbed his hands eagerly and said, "All over it. What about you?" I replied, "I have other matters to attend to. Once you complete the mission, assemble right here." After saying that, I left the conference room. Chezi, sent by Lin Baikuin, had already been waiting outside. He led me through several checkpoints and arrived at the subterranean laboratory. Before we even entered the door, a fierce argument could be heard coming from inside. An old man said angrily, "I said it long ago, that this location wasn't suitable for building a fortress. What do we do now?" Lin Baikuin consoled him. "Please calm down first, elder. This matter is my responsibility." Chezi pushed open the door, and he and I walked inside. Lin Baikuin quickly stepped forward to introduce us. "Elder Son, this is Guki, who is also the Black Dragon on the Mecha Beast Network." Elder Son looked me up and down and said, "I know, you were the one who handled that octopus, right?" I nodded and said, "That's correct. Judging by what you just said, does this chasm have some other hidden story?" Elder Son let out a sigh, pulled out a blueprint, and said, "When building the fortress, we discovered a bottomless little cavern at a depth of 650 feet underground. This newly ripped open chasm happens to be at the exact location of that cavern." I tightly furrowed my brows. So this crack had actually existed long ago. Lin Baikuin said with a face full of regret, "It's my fault. The construction schedule was pressing back then, so I just had them fill the cavern with concrete. I didn't expect it to be completely useless." I patted his shoulder and said, "The crack can no longer be repaired. Right now, we can only find a way to seal it off or relocate the citizens." Elder Son said, in a grave voice, "There is one more thing. Our radar detected a colossal heart beating underground. It is highly likely that the mother body of these monsters is hidden there." Lin Baikuin's eyes lit up and he said, "Then as long as we kill the mother body, we won't have to fear this crack anymore." Elder Son nodded and said, "That is the case. But killing the mother body is easier said than done." Lin Baikuin turned his head to look at me, his eyes full of pleading. "Mr. Gu, I'm afraid you are the only one who can accomplish this." I pondered for a brief moment. The core of a mother body must contain an exceptionally vast amount of energy, which should be enough to let my Kilin and Xiongqi super beasts level up simultaneously. I said calmly, "Leave it to me." Everyone let out a sigh of relief. Elder Son patted my shoulder appreciatively and said, "You truly are the anchoring rock of our nation." Lin Baikuin said, "I will send my personal guard unit to go down with you." I didn't refuse. This matter was indeed not something to be taken lightly. Returning to my own base, Old Black was sprawling lazily on the sofa. He raised his head, glanced at me, and said, "You're going down into that crack." I nodded my head. Old Black said seriously, "You have to be careful, since a fourth crack could appear. More might follow, down below. It's not just the mother body. There are other even more terrifying creatures lurking in wait." I let out a faint chuckle, a fanatical zeal for battle flashing through my eyes. Since they are going to crawl out sooner or later anyway, we might as well deal with them early. Old Black didn't speak further, just watching me silently. At the same time, Sumuya and Zhongfeng had already arrived at the center of the crack. The surroundings were piled high with the corpses of monsters, their green blood staining the earth a deep, dark green. A nauseating, putrid stench filled the air. Looking down into the bottomless chasm, Sumuya felt an inexplicable wave of dread swell up from the depths of her heart. She quickly averted her gaze and began surveying the terrain alongside Zhongfeng. Muya and Zhongfeng, equipped with measuring tools and infrared detectors, quietly approached the edge of the chasm. They meticulously lowered the detector into the rift. At first, everything was normal, but the further down it went, the more unstable the detector became. Suddenly, with a sharp, grating static crash, the detector lost all control and plummeted downward. A colossal burst of electrical static exploded in their earpieces. Sumuya frantically ripped off her headset, as fresh blood already began to ooze from her eardrums. Zhongfeng asked with deep concern, "Are you alright?" Sumuya shook her head and said, "I'm fine. Something down there is disrupting the magnetic field. Our equipment is completely useless." Left with no choice, the two of them could only turn back for now. By the time Chu Quan arrived with the others, the monsters on the ground had already been cleared out, leaving behind nothing but bubbling green sludge covering the area. A nauseating, putrid stench hung heavily in the air. Chu Quan let out a sigh Cyan said. Looks like we're too late. Guanhu chuckled and said, these people all came out looking for cores. Encountering so many monsters after such a struggle, they naturally wanted to slaughter them to their heart's content. Chu Kuang nodded and said, then there's nothing here for us to do. Let's head back to the base. Right at that moment, a sudden burst of crackling electrical static rang out. Not only did Chu Kuang and his team look extremely grave, but even the other Mecha Beast warriors clutched their heads and collapsed to the ground one after another. This sound felt as if it were transmitting directly inside their minds. Zhao Mang's face shifted violently in shock as he pointed at the chasm. Wait, it feels like something massive is about to come out. A colossal black hand reached out from within the crack, instantly casting a massive shadow over the area. Immediately following it was another hand, and then a completely smooth, bald head. This giant was like a colossal mountain. With a swift flick of its tongue, it scooped up a nearby small building, swallowing it whole along with the ordinary people trapped inside. It licked its crimson lips, its greedy gaze fixed dead upon the Mecha Beast warriors present on the scene. A piercing alarm instantly echoed throughout the government fortress. Lin Baikuan stared at the giant on the screen, his eyes bloodshot as he said, how can this be possible? How could the mother body emerge ahead of schedule? Shouldn't it be lurking more than 3,000 feet underground? There's no need to wonder. A voice echoed from behind him. Clad in a black suit, I slowly walked into the office, my gaze fixed steadily upon the mother body displayed on the screen. Old Black had informed me of the news at the very first moment. I straightened my clothes and said, go stabilize the ordinary citizens inside the base. Leave this matter to me. The Golden Plaza Tower had completely collapsed, reduced to a pile of total ruins. Countless Mecha Beast warriors were struggling desperately amid the wreckage, because as long as the mother body remained alive, these giants could absolutely never be killed. Even if their heads were severed, they would completely grow back within half a minute. Chu Kuang viciously hacked off a giant's head, panting heavily as he barked, damn it. Why can't we finish slaughtering these giants? Guan, who was also thoroughly exhausted, they are far more troublesome to deal with than evolved giants. While fighting, the Vermilion Bird Warrior anxiously searched through the ruins for her younger brother's figure. The Rakshasa woman and Lu Yuan were also completely pinned down by the giants, leaving them with absolutely no time to spare for Zhao Yuhang. In their eyes, this ordinary human was merely a pawn in their grand scheme. His death would be of no great loss whatsoever. When I arrived at the scene, what lay before my eyes was a literal living hell on earth. The corpses of weaker Mecha Beast warriors were scattered all over the ground, the stench of blood rushing straight into my nostrils. Spotting me, a glimmer of pure joy flashed across Chu Kuan's eyes as my calm, cold voice fell. A set of armor crisscrossed with dragon patterns and wrapped in black lightning instantly covered my entire body. The level 5 black dragon armor was significantly more majestic than before. Thick bursts of black lightning crackling violently across the surface of the armor, making it appear as though I were wearing heavenly thunder itself. Qion God slaying spear arm. I let out a furious roar. A dark gold lawn spear appeared in my hand. It expanded violently, and a red and black flame flickered within the Qi's eyes. Looking closely, one could almost see the movements of the crimson eyeball. Countless flames slammed toward the ground like meteors. The giants gathered around the mother body instantly turned to ash. The sky was lit up by the fire as bright as day, illuminating everything around like broad daylight. Everyone inside the base stared at the screen, with their mouths wide open. I'm not seeing things, am I? He killed all the giants with just a single move. Is this the true power of the legendary Black Dragon? This is far too terrifying. People who were originally in despair had hope reignited in their eyes at this very moment. Everyone's eyes brimmed with tears of pure excitement, staring intently at that figure on the screen. Standing amidst the roaring flames, the sky full of sparks left everyone thoroughly amazed. The deaths of the giants severely depleted the mother body's vitality. It furiously swung its colossal arm, slapping down toward me. With a gentle leap, I easily dodged the attack, but when the mother body spawned giants, its lower body was completely immobilized. This happened to be its most fatal weakness. Letting out a faint chuckle, the twin black dragons emerged on my shoulders. Go. The twin black dragons flew out like arrows released from a bowstring, wrapping tightly around the mother body's arms. The mother body was being toyed with completely, continuously, letting out furious roars. More giants crawled out from its stomach, yet before they could even get close, they were incinerated into ash by the Qi's flames. I curled my lips and said, didn't they say the mother body was extremely strong? From the look of it now, it's nothing special. Inside the government base, Lin Baikuan stared at the screen with a grave expression, turning his head to look at Elder Sun. Wasn't this handled a bit too easily? Elder Sun let out a sigh and said, just watch. It hasn't unleashed its true power yet. Inside the new god base, Old Black suddenly raised his head and looked up at the sky. The sky was covered with bizarre, gray storm clouds, as faint as a layer of mist. Right at that moment, a bolt of striking thunder, thick as a barrel, cascaded down from the heavens, striking dead onto the mother body. Far from being incinerated into ash, the mother body became covered all over with impregnable scales. Its body rapidly shrank down to the size of an ordinary giant, and its eyes transformed into glowing orbs crackling with electricity. Chu Kuang was shocked. How can this be possible? It actually absorbed the power of thunder and lightning. I said calmly, is this your true form then? The lightning giant. The lightning giant drew a lightning long whip measuring over 30 feet long, lashing it fiercely toward me. As the whip slammed onto the ground, it instantly blasted a trench nearly 16 feet deep. I stood on the spot completely motionless. In the next second, a colossal black dragon descended from the heavens, skies, using its dragon head to block the lightning strike. God-slaying miracle. Total annihilation of heaven and earth. I let out a furious roar. And the lightning in the atmosphere was entirely absorbed by a massive, blood-red maw. The Cheonchi poked its head out from within the storm clouds, coordinating from above with the black dragon on the ground below. They simultaneously charged toward the lightning giant. Crack, crack. Under the pincer attack of the two forces, the lightning giant's scales shattered apart piece by piece. I let out a faint chuckle. I haven't even used my full strength yet, you know. With a wave of my large hand, the lightning giant's body instantly shattered into pieces. A finger-sized purple core floated in midair, with lightning still brewing inside it. It seemed that the more powerful a giant was, the smaller the core inside its body became. Without a shred of hesitation, I absorbed the core completely. A burst of deafening cheers erupted across every single base. Fantastic. We don't have to die anymore. Mr. Gu is our true savior. I slowly landed right beside Chu Quan, while Sumuya and Zhao Yufei also walked over. Zhao Yufei had a complicated expression, hesitating as if she wanted to say something but stopped. I said calmly, "If you want to ask something, just ask." Zhao Yufei clenched her fists tightly. "Mr. Gu, I know there are still spots left in the government base. Could you possibly arrange one for my younger brother?" I raised an eyebrow, looking at the unconscious Zhao Yuhong behind her back. I remember that he was in cahoots with the Rakshasa woman and Wu Yuan. "Are you absolutely sure you want to let him into the base?" Zhao Yufei gritted her teeth and said, "After all, he is my only remaining family. I don't want him to die inside the mouths of the giants." I replied coldly, "What use is there in keeping someone who can even betray his own biological sister? Kill him." Sumu Yao nodded and said, "Understood." Zhao Yufei wanted to plead further, but she was scared back by a single cold glance from me. She gritted her teeth and handed Zhao Yuhong over to Sumu Yao. Instead of returning to the government base, I headed back to my own living quarters first. Old Black was lounging lazily on the sofa and said, "The lightning giant is merely a beginning. The second evolution will appear very soon, and the fifth chasm will follow right along with it." Tightly furrowing my brows, "Isn't this evolutionary speed a bit too fast?" Old Black let out a yawn, saying, "Originally, it was supposed to be once a month, because you killed the Crimson Eye. The second evolution was skipped entirely, and now we're entering straight into the third one." Thoughtfully, I said, "So you mean the closer we get to the evolution?" Old Black gave a soft grunt of agreement, and stopped speaking. Just then, Lin Baikuin sent over a message, inviting me to the government base. With a word, I stood up and headed over. Lin Baikuin and elder son were already waiting for me in the conference room. Lin Baikuin greeted me with a loud laugh, saying, "I knew you would definitely be able to handle the lightning giant." I said calmly, "Let's hear it. What do you need me for?" Elder son pulled out a file and said, "To the right of wall number 1, we've discovered another area where a crack is likely to appear. That location happens to be the largest chemical district in the empire, housing over 30 factories. If a chasm rips open right there, and the chemical wastewater leaks, the consequences will be unimaginable." I tightly furrowed my brows. This is indeed a massive problem. Toxic wastewater would not only contaminate the soil, but evaporating into the sea would also form acid rain, leading to total crop failure. Elder son smiled slightly and said, "I have an idea. Transfer the wastewater to other reservoirs ahead of schedule." I cut him off. "We don't need any reservoirs. Channel it directly into the chasm." Lin Baikuin asked in confusion, "But won't doing that contaminate the ground?" I chuckled. "You don't need to worry about that. I have my own ways. In 10 days at most, the fifth chasm will appear. You need to channel all of the wastewater into the chasm within 6 to 7 days. Looking at the absolute certainty in my eyes, Lin Baikuin let out a helpless sigh and said, "All right, just say the word for whatever materials you need." I walked out of the government base's conference room. The afternoon sunlight cascaded through the shattered glass windows onto my body, yet I couldn't feel the slightest touch of warmth. Daytime now lasted for a mere 3 hours. Once it passed 12 o'clock, darkness would swallow the entire world, like a surging tide. The words of Lin Baikuin and elder son still echo in my ears. The over 30 factories in the chemical district stored over 1 million tons of highly toxic chemical wastewater. Once a crack ripped open right there, the consequences would be truly unimaginable. But a bold, daring plan had already formed in my mind. Once this plan succeeded, not only could it resolve the wastewater problem, but it would also give those giants, who were about to crawl out of the chasm, a massive surprise. Returning to the new god fortress, I immediately called a meeting with all core members: Chu Quan, Sumu Yao, Zhao Yufei, Guan Hu, Zhang Feng, Zhao Meng, and the others flanked both sides, every single face bearing a highly grave expression. After these past few days of constant battles, they had all grown into powerful experts capable of holding their own. But in the face of the impending third evolution, no one dared to lower their guard. I briefly went over the situation in the chemical district and my plan, then looked toward Chu Kuang and said, "Chu Kuang, take Guan Hu, Zhang Feng, and Zhao Mang with you, and lead 5,000 Mecha Beast warriors to the chemical district to assist the military in channeling the wastewater. Remember, all work must be completed within 6 days. There must be absolutely no errors." Chu Kuang stood up abruptly, tatted his chest, and said, "Rest assured. Boss, mission guaranteed to be accomplished. Mission guaranteed to be accomplished." I then looked at Su Muyao and said, Muyao, you are in charge of coordinating supplies and personnel deployment to ensure that the frontline logistics are never interrupted. At the same time, reinforce the fortress's defenses, especially the energy system and supply warehouses. Absolutely nothing must go wrong. Su Muyao nodded and said, "Yes, sir, I'll go arrange it right away." Finally, I looked at Zhao Yufei and said, "Vermilion Bird, take your squad and handle intelligence, gathering to closely monitor Zhang Luochen and his people. I have a feeling they won't just let things go, and they will definitely try to stir up trouble amidst the chaos." A flash of guilt crossed Zhao Yufei's eyes, and she said, in a low voice, "Mr. Gu, I'm sorry. This is all because of me." I waved my hand, cutting her off. "Let bygones be bygones. You're not to blame for what your brother did, but you must remember, from now on, the new God group is your home, and we are all your family." Zhao Yufei looked out, tears welling in her eyes as she nodded heavily. After the meeting concluded, everyone immediately went into action. The new God fortress was like a precision machine, running at high speed. I stood at the top floor of the new God building, watching the busy crowd below, yet my heart didn't feel light at all. Old Black had said that the giants of the third evolution would be several times stronger than before, and even more terrifying creatures would crawl up from underground. I walked over to the sofa, looked at Old Black who was lounging lazily on it, and asked, "Old Black, what exactly is the void behemoth you mentioned?" Old Black raised his head, a complex look flashing through his tiny eyes. He remained silent for a moment before speaking. "You don't need to know that just yet. When the time is right, I will naturally tell you. What you need to do right now is to increase your own strength as quickly as possible. Your 5 elements kill in armor is still stuck at level 4, and that won't do." I frowned and said, "I want to level it up too, but the cores from ordinary giants are simply not enough. Even the purple core I got from killing the lightning giant only managed to bring my black dragon armor to level 5. Old Black chuckled and said, "Don't rush. Soon, a highly nourishing meal will deliver itself right to our doorstep. The things inside the 5th chasm are far more powerful than the garbage from before." I wanted to ask further, but Old Black had already closed his eyes and started snoring. I shook my head helplessly, walked over to the window, and looked at the distant sky. The silhouette of the blood moon was already vaguely visible, resembling a colossal eye, gazing coldly down upon this heavily scarred world. Over the next few days, everything proceeded very smoothly. Chu Kuang and his team worked day and night in the chemical district, and the military also dispatched a large number of engineering personnel and Mecha Beast warriors to assist. Over 1 million tons of chemical wastewater flowed continuously through pipelines laid out temporarily, pooling into the massive reservoirs dug out in advance. However, beneath the calm surface, an undercurrent was surging. Intelligence from Zhao Yufei showed that Zhang Luochen and his people had been highly active lately. Not only had they gathered a large number of stragglers and rogue warriors, but they had also secretly colluded with several other factions that held a grudge against me. Their total headcount had already exceeded 20,000 people. They were also spreading rumors across the Mecha Beast network, claiming that in order to eliminate the giants, I wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice the survivors in the entire chemical district, causing some Mecha Beast warriors who didn't know the truth to develop hostility toward me. Su Muya also reported to me that many suspicious-looking individuals had recently appeared around the perimeter of the fortress. They seemed to be scouting the terrain, looking for weaknesses in the fortress's defenses. After listening to these reports, a cold smile curled on the corners of my mouth. People like Zhang Luochen really won't learn until they see their own coffins, since they are in such a frantic rush to find death. Then I will grant their wish. On the night of the 6th day, which was the day before the 5th chasm I predicted was set to appear, I stood on the rooftop of the new God building, looking out toward the chemical district in the distance. The entire area was brightly lit, turned as bright as broad daylight. Chu Quan had just sent over a message, stating that all the wastewater had been completely transferred, and they were just waiting for the crack to appear to open the floodgates. Right at that moment, Old Black suddenly spoke up. "It's here." My heart skipped a beat, and I immediately looked toward the direction of the chemical district. I saw the ground over there begin to shake violently, as colossal cracks, resembling a spiderweb, rippled and spread outward. Immediately following that, a deafening explosion echoed through the air, and the earth caved in violently, forming a massive deep crater with a diameter of over 6 miles. Countless tillers of black light erupted from the deep crater into the heavens, lighting up the entire night sky as bright as day. Right after that, innumerable giants crawled out from the deep crater. These giants were far taller and larger than any of the previous kinds, with an average height of over 160 feet. Their skin was a dark, murky black, covered in a thick layer of stratum corneum, looking completely impregnable. "Open the gates," I immediately commanded through the communicator. Following my order, the floodgates built in advance slammed open with a roaring crash. Over 1 million tons of highly toxic chemical wastewater resembled a black torrent, rushing toward the massive deep crater with a roaring surge. A fairly shocking scene took place. Those giants who had just crawled out of the deep crater, the exact moment they made contact with the chemical wastewater, instantly let out piercing, agonizing shrieks. Their skin rotted at a speed visible to the naked eye, dissolving within a matter of a a few short seconds, into pools of green sludge. We succeeded. Wildly excited voices echoed through the communicator. Yet I didn't let my guard down at all, because I knew things would absolutely not be this simple. Sure enough, it wasn't long before a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from within the deep crater. Several giants of an even more colossal build crawled out from the pit. Their skin was a bright, glowing green, shimmering with a metallic luster. Far from fearing the chemical wastewater, these giants were actually continuously absorbing the radiation and chemical substances within the wastewater. Their bodies grew larger and larger. Radiation giants, Old Black said, in a grave voice. Be careful. The strength of these fellows is far greater than that of the lightning giants. Furthermore, their attacks carry intense radiation. Once you are struck, even your Mecha Beast Armor will be severely corroded. I nodded my head. Just as I was preparing to set off for the chemical district, Sumuyo's anxious voice suddenly came through the communicator. Mr. Gu, this is bad. The fortress is under attack. A large number of unidentified Mecha Beast warriors are currently assaulting the west and north gates. Their firepower is extremely fierce, and we're about to lose our hold. My heart sank. It was exactly as I had anticipated. John Luochen and his people had made their move. Chu Quan, take half of our forces and continue clearing out the radiation giants. The remaining forces follow me back to the fortress. I gave the command through the communicator. Boss, how can we do that? The number of radiation giants here is increasing, and we're already short-handed. Chu Kuang said anxiously. Don't worry, I'll be back very shortly. After saying that, I cut off the transmission, then transformed into a streak of black lightning, speeding frantically toward the direction of the New God Fortress. By the time I rushed back to the New God Fortress, the battle had already entered a white-hot phase. The defensive fortifications at the west and north gates had already been mostly destroyed. Countless Mecha Beast warriors were swarming toward the fortress like a surging tide. John Luochen, Wu Yuan, the Rakshasa woman, and the Palace King were standing on a distant tall building, gazing coldly at this battle. Spotting my return, the Mecha Beast warriors, who were currently attacking, were all so terrified that they halted their steps, backing away one after another. Seeing this, John Luochen immediately bellowed, "Everyone, do not be afraid. There is only one Guqi. While we have over 20,000 people, we can grind him to death through sheer numbers. As long as we kill him, all the supplies and women inside the New God Fortress will be ours." Under his incitement, those Mecha Beast warriors summoned up their courage once again and charged toward the fortress. A cold gleam flashed through my eyes as I barked in a low voice, "Black Dragon Armor." With a sharp hum, the level 5 Black Dragon Armor instantly covered my entire body. Thick bursts of black lightning crackled violently across the surface of the armor. Holding the Qionqi God-slaying spear, I plunged into the enemy crowd like a streak of black lightning. God-slaying miracle, wrath of the Thunder Dragon. I let out a furious roar, and the twin black dragons behind my back rushed out howling, rampaging wildly through the enemy crowd. Black lightning cascaded down like raindrops, and every single bolt of lightning claimed the lives of several Mecha Beast warriors. Those Mecha Beast warriors, who were originally full of menacing momentum, were as weak as ants before me, collapsing at a single blow. Their attack struck the Black Dragon armor, yet they couldn't even leave a single white mark. On the other hand, with a casual thrust of my spear, I could skewer several people like a kebab. In just a matter of a few short minutes, over 1,000 Mecha Beast warriors fell beneath my spear. The remaining survivors were scared out of their wits. None of them dared to step forward anymore, turning around one after another to flee. Useless. A bunch of absolute trash. John Luoken's face turned completely ashen with rage as he bellowed, "Wu Yuan, Rakshasa woman, Palace King, let's charge together." I refuse to believe that the four of us combined can't defeat him alone. After saying that, he transformed into a streak of golden light and charged straight toward me. Wu Yuan, the Rakshasa woman, and the Palace King followed closely behind, launching attacks at me from different directions. John Luochen held the Holy Dragon King sword, which radiated a brilliant golden light. With a single downward slash, a golden blade or hundreds of feet long chopped down straight at my head. Wu Yuan, meanwhile, summoned the colossal Towdy Beast, opening its massive, bloody maw in an attempt to swallow me whole in a single bite. The Rakshasa woman swung her barbed blonde whip, which coiled toward my limbs like a venomous serpent. The Palace King clapped his hands together, sending a bolt of blue lightning, as thick as a barrel crackling toward me. Facing the combined assault of the four, my expression didn't change a single fraction. I let out a cold snort, violently planting the Qionqi God-slaying spear in my hand, into the ground. 5 elements kill in armor. Arm, Qionqi armor, arm, following my 2 furious roars. The other 2 beast rings lit up simultaneously, a set of kill in armor shimmering with 5 flowing colors, and a set of dark gold Qionqi armor washed over the Black Dragon armor like a surging tide. The 3 sets of armor perfectly fused together, forming an unprecedented set of tricolor armor. A terrifyingly vast aura erupted from my body, causing the wind and clouds in the sky to shift violently, amidst crackles of thunder and lightning. Before this aura, the combined attacks of John Luoken's Luoken's group of 4 were as fragile as cardboard, disintegrating completely in an instant. How can this be possible? John Luoken's eyes widened, looking at me with a face full of absolute disbelief. How can you possibly wield 3 sets of Mecha Beast Armor at the same time? This is absolutely impossible. I slowly raised my head, my eyes beneath the tricolor armor as cold as frost. Nothing is impossible. You frogs at the bottom of a well can never comprehend true power. Having said that, my figure flashed, instantly appearing right in front of the Palace King, before the Palace King could even react. My punch smashed squarely into his chest. His Mecha Beast Armor shattered in an instant, and he went flying backward like a kite with a broken string, crashing heavily onto the ground, vomiting fresh blood. He clearly wasn't going to make it. Palace King. The Rakshasa woman let out a startled shriek, a flash of pure terror crossing her eyes, as she turned around, wanting to flee. But how could I possibly give her the chance? With a casual wave of my hand, a streak of black lightning shot out, instantly piercing right through her heart. The Rakshasa woman didn't even have time to let out a shriek, before collapsing to the ground, completely devoid of life. In the blink of an eye, 2 out of the 4 were dead, and Liu Yuan was scared out of his wits. He turned around to flee. I let out a cold snort, and the Qionqi god-slaying spear flew straight out of my hand, resembling a golden meteor that caught up to Liu Yuan in an instant, piercing in from his back, and exiting through his chest. Liu Yuan slowly collapsed. Before dying, he turned his head, his eyes filled with absolute resentment and bitterness. Guki, even as a ghost, I won't let you off. Ignoring his final words, my gaze fell upon John Luochen, the last one remaining. John Luochen was already trembling violently, all over from sheer terror. Even the Holy Dragon King sword in his hand wouldn't stop shaking. He looked at me and said, in a trembling voice, "And Mr. Gu, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I beg you to spare me. I'm willing to work like a dog for you, and remain loyal to you forever." I walked toward him step by step, saying in a cold voice, "Now you know you were wrong. Too late. For the sake of your own ambition, you didn't hesitate to sacrifice countless innocent lives, and you even wanted to blow up the chemical district, to make everyone in Upper City go down to the grave with you. For a person like you, dying 10,000 times would not be enough." Seeing that begging for mercy was useless, a flash of madness crossed John Luoken's eyes. He suddenly pulled a remote control out from his vest, howling, "Since I can't live, then we'll all die together. I've already installed bombs inside the reservoirs of the chemical district. As long as I press this button, the remaining hundreds of thousands of tons of chemical wastewater will completely leak out, and the entirety of Upper City will turn into a wasteland." I halted my steps, a flash of killing intent crossing my eyes. "You dare? What is there that I wouldn't dare?" John Luochen laughed frantically. "Guki, aren't you incredibly powerful? Aren't you the savior of the world? Now I'm giving you a choice. Either you commit suicide, or I press this button, and make everyone go down to the grave with me." Right at that moment, a red figure suddenly dashed out from the side, snatching the remote control straight out of John Luoken's hand. "Peacock, what are you doing?" John Luochen barked in pure shock and fury. The woman in peacock armor looked at John Luochen, her eyes completely filled with disappointment and anger. "John Luochen, I must have been completely blind to ever follow a lunatic like you. How many people have you gotten killed just for your own ambition? I'm absolutely never going to be in cahoots with you again." It turned out that the woman in peacock armor had long since felt intense dissatisfaction with John Luoken's actions, but she had simply never dared to resist. Seeing that John Luochen actually wanted to blow up the chemical district just now, she had finally reached the absolute limit of her patience, and stepped up to snatch away the remote control. John Luochen trembled all over with pure rage, roaring, "Traitor, I'll kill you." He raised the Holy Dragon King sword and chopped straight down at Peacock. My figure flashed, blocking the path right in front of Peacock, and with a casual punch, I smashed John Luochen square in the face. Several of John Luoken's teeth were knocked flying out, and he flew backward, crashing onto the ground. I walked over to him, planting a foot firmly onto his chest, and said in a cold voice, "Game over." Having said that, I applied a slight fraction of force beneath my foot. With a sudden crack, John Luoken's breastbones completely shattered, killing him on the spot. With the death of John Luochen, this rebellion was finally quelled. As for those fleeing Mecha Beast warriors, the vast majority were captured back by Sumuya and her forces. Regarding those heinous ringleaders, I ordered them all to be executed. As for those ordinary warriors who had been thoroughly deceived, I granted them an opportunity to reform their ways, allowing them to join the new god Mecha Beast Legion to atone for their crimes through service. Because the woman in the peacock armor was credited with exposing John Luochen, she received lenient treatment. She also took the initiative to request to join the new god group, and I agreed, assigning her to work with Zhao Yufei on intelligence gathering. Having resolved the fortress crisis, I immediately led my men and rushed to the chemical district. By the time I arrived at the chemical district, Chu Kuang and the others were locked in a bitter struggle. The number of radiation giants was increasing continuously, and several colossal radiation giants, measuring over 300 feet tall, had even appeared. Although Chu Kuang and his team resisted with all their might, they were gradually becoming unable to hold their ground. "I'm here to help you." I let out a loud shout, charging into the enemy crowd with the Qionqi god-slaying spear in hand. At this moment, I was already capable of skillful skillfully utilizing the combined power of the 3 sets of Mecha Beast Armor. With a single thrust of my spear, the tricolor light intertwined to form a colossal wave of energy, instantly cleaving one of the colossal radiation giants cleanly in half through the waist. Seeing my arrival, Chu Kuang and the others felt a massive boost in morale. We fought side by side, slaughtering the radiation giants as effortlessly as chopping vegetables. After 3 hours of fierce fighting, all of the radiation giants were finally completely wiped out by us. The entire chemical district was reduced to a scorched wasteland, the air thick with a pungent chemical odor and the stench of blood. I stood at the edge of the massive deep crater, looking down into the bottomless chasm, yet my heart didn't feel light at all. Old Black had said that even more terrifying creatures were lurking down below. Old Black, you can tell me the truth now, right? I said to Old Black on my shoulder. Old Black fell silent for a brief moment, and then slowly spoke. All right, since you have already made it to this point, it's time I told you everything. In truth, I am not a creature of this world. I come from a higher dimension, and I am a cosmic guardian. Our duty is to protect various planets from being invaded by void behemoths. Void behemoths are the most terrifying creatures in the universe. They feed on a planet's life energy. Every time they reach a planet, they release void energy, causing the creatures on the planet to mutate into their vanguard units. Then, they will descend in person to devour the entire planet's life energy. The descent of the blood moon is actually the sign that a void behemoth is about to arrive. Those giants are merely vanguard units created when the void energy released by the void behemoth mutated the creatures on Earth. On the other hand, the super beasts are Earth's native creatures that underwent a positive evolution under the influence of the void energy. I arrived on Earth 100 years ago and have been observing in secret. It wasn't until 10 years ago that I crossed paths with you. I discovered that you actually possess the legendary Chaos Physique. This constitution allows you to wield multiple sets of Mecha Beast Armor, at the same time, making you the only person capable of defeating a void behemoth. That is why I disguised myself as an old beggar and gave my clone to you, subsequently guiding your growth step by step through prophetic dreams. To prepare for the impending disaster, the Mecha Beast Network was also established by me, with the purpose of allowing humanity to unite and jointly combat the giants. The Crimson Eye is the eye of the void behemoth. It can parasitize other organisms to gather information about Earth. The Crimson Eye you killed before was merely one of its clones. Its main entity is at the deepest part of this chasm, connected together with the main entity of the void behemoth. The reason the giant's evolutionary speed accelerated is because the void behemoth sensed the threat you pose and launched the invasion ahead of schedule. Right now, the main entity of the void behemoth is very close to breaking through the dimensional barrier. If it succeeds in descending, Earth will be completely destroyed. Having listened to Old Black's words, I remained silent for a very long time. So behind all of this, such a shocking secret was hidden. I had always thought that I was just an ordinary person who got lucky, never expecting that I would actually shoulder the mission of saving the entire world. I took a deep breath, looked at Old Black, and said, "Then what should I do now?" Old Black said seriously, "You must enter the deepest part of the chasm, locate the main entity of the void behemoth, and eliminate it completely before it breaks through the dimensional barrier. But this is exceptionally dangerous. Once you fail, not only will you die, but the entire Earth will be destroyed." I let out a smile, a flash of determination crossing my eyes. I have no choice. If I don't go, everyone will die. To protect this world, and to protect the people I care about, I must go. Old Black looked at me, a flash of approval crossing his eyes. Good. As expected of the person I chose, I will help you open the portal leading to the location of the void behemoth's main entity. The rest will be entirely up to you. Having said that, Old Black leapt down from my shoulder, suspended in midair. His body began to emit a dazzling light, growing brighter and brighter, until it finally transformed into a tiny orb of light. Kid Goo, remember, no matter what difficulties you face, do not give up. The potential of the Chaos Physique is limitless. As long as you believe in yourself, you will definitely be able to defeat the void behemoth. As Old Black's voice fell, the light orb violently charged toward the deep crater, blasting open the deepest part of the chasm, forming a colossal gate of light. This is the portal leading to the location of the void behemoth's main entity. Remember, you only have 1 hour. After 1 hour, the portal will close. Old Black's voice echoed inside my mind. I nodded my head, turned back to look at Chu Kuang and the others. They were all looking at me with eyes full of worry. "Boss, be careful," Chu Kuang said in a grave voice. "Rest assured, I'll be back very shortly." I let out a smile, then turned around and leapt straight into the gate of light. Passing through the gate of light, I arrived inside a bizarre space. There was no sky and no ground here. Everywhere was filled with distorted light and chaotic energy. A suffocating sense of oppression rushed in from all directions, leaving me barely able to catch my breath. At the center of the space, a staggeringly massive, black fleshy sphere floated. This fleshy sphere measured over 6 miles in diameter. Its surface covered all over with countless bright red eyes. It was none other than the main entity of the void behemoth. behemoth. Right above the fleshy sphere, there was a colossal rift. The other side of the rift was an endless darkness, and countless streams of black energy surged out from within the crack, channeling straight into the void behemoth's body. Clearly, the void behemoth was utilizing this rift to absorb energy from within the void, preparing to break through the dimensional barrier. Spotting my entry, every single eye on the void behemoth's main entity turned in unison to look straight at me. A bone-chilling, evil thought, thoroughly saturated with an aura of destruction, channeled into my mind. Insignificant human, you actually dare to intrude into my domain. Since you have come, then become my nourishment. Following this thought, countless black tentacles reached out from within the fleshy sphere, surging toward me, like venomous serpents. I didn't dare lower my guard, immediately pushing the power of my 3 sets of Mecha Beast Armor to the absolute limit. Tricolor light swirled across my body, forming a solid shield of energy. Clang, clang, clang. The black tentacles lashed violently onto the energy shield, letting out deafening, colossal crash. The energy shield shook violently, and fractures began to appear across surface one after another. My heart skipped a beat. The strength of the void behemoth indeed far surpassed my imagination. I didn't dare engage in passive defense any longer, and holding the Cheonchi God-slaying spear, I took the initiative to launch an attack. God-slaying ultimate move, Trinity Force. I let out a furious roar, channeling all the power within my body right into the long spear. The phantom projections of the 3 super beasts, the Black Dragon, the Cheonchi, and the Killing, manifested behind my back simultaneously, and then fused into one with the long spear. A colossal wave of energy, interwoven with tricolor light, shot out from the spear, resembling a gargantuan dragon, surging straight toward the main entity of the void behemoth. The void behemoth let out a furious roar, as countless tentacles interwoven together to form a colossal black barrier. The wave of energy slammed violently onto the black barrier, letting out an earth-shattering, colossal explosion. The entire space vibrated violently, and the distorted light became even more chaotic. The black barrier was torn to shreds by the energy wave in an instant, with its momentum entirely undiminished. The energy wave slammed fiercely onto the void behemoth's main entity. The void behemoth let out a piercing, agonizing shriek, as a colossal gaping hole was blasted open across its main entity. Pitch black blood gushed out like a fountain. Accursed human, I want you dead. The void behemoth was completely infuriated. Its main entity began to squirm violently, and countless bright red eyes simultaneously shot out beams of crimson light, firing straight toward me. I frantically dodged, but the speed of the light beams was far too fast, and I was still struck by several beams of light. My energy shield shattered in an instant, and all 3 sets of Mecha Beast Armor sustained varying degrees of severe damage. Fresh blood also flowed from the corners of my mouth. This won't do. If this keeps up, I will be ground to death. I muttered to myself. I took a deep breath, a flash of madness crossing my eyes. I decided to take a gamble by completely releasing all the power of the Chaos Physique, letting out a furious roar. The chaos power within my body erupted like a violent volcano. Under the influence of the chaos power, the tricolor Mecha Beast Armor began to undergo a violent transformation. They gradually fused together, forming a brand new set of armor, radiating a magnificent 7-color light. An unprecedented, vast amount of power erupted straight out of my body, causing the entire space to tremble beneath the overwhelming pressure of this power. The attacks of the void behemoth struck my body, yet it felt like nothing more than a mere edge, failing to cause any form of damage whatsoever. This is the Chaos Divine Armor. How can this be possible? How could you possibly manifest the Chaos Divine Armor? The void behemoth let out a cry of pure terror, ignoring its startled screams. Holding the weapon that had already evolved into the Chaos Divine Spear, I charged straight toward the void behemoth. Chaos Miracle, opening of heaven and earth. I let out a furious roar, chopping the Chaos Divine Spear in my hand violently downward. A colossal flash of 7-color light flared out, appearing to cleave the entire space completely in half. The main entity of the void behemoth was instantly split into two by the 7-color light. Countless crimson eyes went dark simultaneously. It let out one final, agonizing shriek, and then completely lost all signs of life. With the death of the void behemoth, the dimensional rift above began to slowly close back up. The entire space also began to become highly unstable, on the verge of collapsing at any given second. I didn't dare linger, immediately turning around to fly toward the direction of the Gate of Light. When I rushed out of the Gate of Light and returned to the deep crater in the chemical district, I happened to see the Gate of Light slowly vanish. Chu Kuang and the others were gathered around the edge of the deep crater, waiting in desperate anxiety. Spotting my return, they all cheered with wild excitement. "Boss, you're back. Fantastic. We knew you would definitely succeed." I landed right onto the ground, dispelling the chaos. Divine armor, a tired smile appearing on my face. Right at that moment, the blood moon up in the sky began to gradually fade away, turning back into a bright, pristine white. Sunlight pierced through the cloud layers, washing over the earth. Everyone looked up at the long-awaited sunshine, their eyes brimming with tears of pure excitement. The blood moon has vanished. We won. We don't have to die anymore. Cheers echoed throughout the entire Opera City, across the entire nation, and throughout the whole wide world. After the void behemoth was destroyed, all the chasms closed up automatically. The remaining giants lost their energy source, and all died off very quickly. Humanity finally won this arduous and grueling war. In the days that followed, we began the long process of reconstruction. The new god group and the government worked in full cooperation to clear the ruins and rebuild our homes. The Mecha Beast network was also preserved, becoming a platform for humans to communicate and learn. 1 year later, Upper City had fully restored its former prosperity. New high-rises and skyscrapers soared from the ground. The streets were bustling with heavy traffic, and smiles finally returned to people's faces. I stood at the top floor of the new god building, looking down at the bustling metropolis below. 1,000 thoughts flooding my mind. So much had happened over the past year. I went from an ordinary guy who just wanted to neuter his pet turtle to the savior who rescued the entire world. After the void behemoth was destroyed, Old Black fell into a deep slumber. He said he had expended far too much energy and would need a very long time to recover. I kept him right in my office, changing his water and feeding him every single day. Chu Quan became the commander-in-chief of the new god Mecha Beast Legion, responsible for training new Mecha Beast warriors to safeguard the security of mankind. Sumuya continued to serve as my secretary and manager, while also overseeing the daily operations of the new god group. Zhao Yufei became the deputy commander-in-chief of the Mecha Beast Legion, taking charge of intelligence operations. After a year of intense training and experience, the Sparrow Sisters had grown into excellent Mecha Beast warriors and officially joined my core team. Lin Baikuan continued to serve as the commander of the 8th War Zone, maintaining a close partnership with the new god group. Elder Sun led his team of scientists, constantly researching Mecha Beasts and void energy. They had already made many major breakthroughs, and humanity's technological level advanced at a breakneck speed. The woman in the peacock armor also became an outstanding intelligence operative. She proved her own value through her actions, and earned everyone's hard-won recognition. As for those who sacrificed their lives in the war, we built a monument for them, to forever honor and remember their achievements. I picked up the teacup from the desk and took a sip. The sunshine streamed through the glass window onto my body, warm and comfortable. Although the void behemoth had been completely destroyed, I knew deep down that there were still many unknown dangers in the universe. New threats might still emerge in the future, but I was no longer afraid, because I knew I wasn't fighting alone. I had a group of trustworthy companions, and countless brave humans by my side. Together, we would protect this beautiful homeland. I looked out the window. The sky was crystal blue, and the white clouds drifted lazily by. Days of peace were truly beautiful, fully worth protecting with our lives. I gently stroked the turtle tank on the desk, looking at Old Black, who was resting quietly inside. A gentle smile curled on the corners of my mouth. Old Black, thank you. We'll walk the road ahead together.